Apocalyptic Black Technology System. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 40 Depressed Special Envoy. Chapter 40 Depressed Envoy. Hello, Your Excellency Commander. I am William, the representative of the United States. It is a pleasure to meet you. On behalf of the United States, I would like to express my sincere respect for your contribution to the great cause of resisting this swarm. Looking at the well-dressed American special envoy in front of him, Su-Ran frowned deeply. He realized that he had been fooled by Yuan Lich, and why would others think too much if they don't see this American envoy? Now the Xinjiang special zone is almost completely blocked by the swarm, and even the communication with Huaxia cannot be guaranteed all the time. Under such circumstances, where else will the special envoys come to the Xinjiang special zone? The corners of Su-Ran's eyes twitched a little, so he let out a breath and said, "Please sit down." That Mr. William sat down immediately and began to give an eloquent speech. This William is really good at speaking. First, he praised Su-Ran and flattered him. Then he got into the theme and began to publicize their American army and various achievements, and how effective they were in fighting against the swarm. Back and forth, how great contributions have been made in resisting the invasion of alien creatures. This Mr. William's Chinese is average, and he speaks with an interpreter's accent. He talked a lot, and Su-Ran was dizzy in the end. This Mr. William invited very warmly, "On behalf of the United States, I sincerely invite you and your fleet to come to our country." As he said that, he also euphemistically stated that since Su-Ran is not from Earth, it shouldn't be a problem in which country and who he fights with. William seemed extremely sincere, and was recruiting for security with a serious face. Su-Ran reckoned that this was another attempt to see if there was a possibility of being recruited. "But you have all started to instigate against Lao Tzu's adjutant, and you are sincerely instigating against Lao Tzu, right?" Su-Ran sighed, and said with a righteous face, "Well, I can consider your invitation. But I also ask you to be careful. The Dongying people are eyeing your blaster production line and robot production line. Be careful, don't let the islanders take advantage of others. If necessary, I am still willing to provide you with military assistance. After all, you are also contributing to resisting the swarm." William was stunned by these words, and it took him a while to come back to his senses. He pretended to be surprised and said, "How do you know about our blaster production line and robot production line? To the Earth, I know more than you humans." Su-Ran replied pretendingly, taking advantage of the situation to release a little bit of his own dark energy, and made a posture of an alien. The abnormal surge of dark energy is imperceptible to a non-awakened person like William. He can only feel a slight coolness in his body, as if a cold air is rushing past him. "Your Excellency, the commander is so human that he is too presumptuous in front of him." William quickly sat upright at this time. Su-Ran said, "Have you finished, Mr. William?" "Yes, okay. Then I'll start." Su-Ran smiled. William was a little stunned. Although he could speak Chinese, he didn't know much about Chinese culture. He felt that Su-Ran's sentence "I'm starting" was a bit inexplicable, but Su-Ran said, "Just now I heard about your American efforts to resist the insect swarm, and you have the ability to wipe out a conventional insect nest. Which is really amazing. In this case, I think there is no need to bring my fleet to North America after all. As you can see, our fleet has just defeated a regular brood in Ice City, and defeated a sky brood on the northeast plain, and now it has drawn a boundary with the swarm and confirmed the existence of the Xinjiang special zone. Oh, to tell you the truth, I went to Korea a few days ago and gave them 30 turbo laser guns." "Wait, what are you talking about?" "Oh my God. Your Excellency Commander, you actually gave Guerrilla 30 turbo laser cannons?" William interrupted, his eyes widened. "Yeah, what's the matter?" Su-Ran said lightly, "It's the one in your old American movie Star Wars, but our energy level is relatively weak, so we can blow up a bug nest or something." William's jaw almost dropped in surprise. Turbo laser cannon, how could he not know? Especially now that the US military is using alien technology to build a blaster production line today. The US military has been able to produce large-scale blaster guns, but that is limited to combat weapons for individual soldiers, such as turbo laser guns that only appeared in movies. Now they still have more than a dozen technical difficulties. It will take at least 2 years to conquer and create it, and it also depends on the help of the alien technology they have obtained. However, Su-Ran already has a turbo laser cannon, and they all gave Guerrilla 30 turbo laser cannons. William opened his mouth and was unable to speak for a while, and Su-Ran started his performance on the surface. Su-Ran is boasting about the military exploits of the US military, but in fact, he always turns to himself, bragging about his achievements, and exaggerating some things that are no longer secrets, or will soon not be secrets. When he said it, he was obviously showing off. Later, William also heard that Su-Ran was showing off to him, and while showing off herself, she belittled the US military. After all, compared with Su-Ran's illustrious military exploits and various black technologies, their little technology is really nothing. And the gap in technology between the two is even like a natural mode. At first, William could reply a few words, but when Su-Ran talked about the shield technology of his own destroyer and the nano-cloud of the Sky Brood War, William could only shut up. Honestly, William actually wanted to say goodbye, but for some reason, as soon as he moved his butt, his body would feel cold, and he didn't dare to move immediately. He realized that it was the alien in front of him. Don't want to leave yourself. Due to Su-Ran's status as an alien and the supreme commander of the fleet, William knew that Su-Ran was cursing with a smile, but he couldn't turn his back on him, let alone refute, so he could only speak honestly. There, sitting, you have to listen to Su-Ran with a smile on your face. However, William's heart was already filled with 10,000 Fu CKS, and he was extremely depressed. He is identified Commissioner of the United States. How could he be angry with others when he came here? Chapter 41 Negotiation. After sending Mr. William away with a smile, Su-Ran straightened his expression and went straight to the next target. The next target is his old friend Minister Jin Seun of Xinjiang. Chang Su-Ran passed through the urban area of Xinjiang City in a special car. After more than 2 months of evolution, the new capital has undergone earth-shaking changes. There are more pedestrians on both sides of the street than before, and some shops are even open to sell some supplies and buy some food. However, these vendors now, no matter how small the curtain is, they must have forces behind them to support them. Otherwise, few people can prop up a shop with their own strength in this season. And judging from the looks of the passers-by on the street, the atmosphere in the new capital is obviously much better than when Su-Ran first came here. There is no threat of insect swarms, everyone's mental state is quite good, and many people even stand side by side, talking and laughing while walking, as if before the end of the world. There are also quite a few vehicles on the street, rushing through the urban area of the new capital city. Looking at the street scenes and pedestrians passing by outside the window, Su-Ran couldn't help but think deeply, if war starts now, will the lives of these people who have finally calmed down be wiped out again? After the Sky Brood War, Xinjiang City expanded many times, and now its size has reached 2/3 of the original Xinjiang City. The original new capital is now mostly divided into a joint administrative area of the military area and the government area, and the guards have become stricter. However, in the new capital city, Su-Ran is a privilege among privileges. When his car approached, he rolled down the window and showed his face. The person in charge of the inspection immediately changed his face, and quickly stood at attention and saluted, and said in a deep voice, "Please come." Su-Ran also smiled back. Don't care about the state of the upper class, but most of the lower class fighters in the new capital are in awe of Su-Ran. If there are books, it will be long, and if there are no books, it will be short. When they came to the government area, Su-Ran didn't wait for a long time before seeing Jin Seun. In the past 2 months, Su-Ran and Li Ji have had a lot of contact, but they have only met Minister Jin a few times. The establishment of the new Beijing Special Zone and the large-scale influx of people can be said to be too busy for this. Minister Su-Ran felt that Minister Jin had several gray hairs on his temples. Su-Ran was not too polite, and she came up to express her intentions. "I'm here for the Kong Kong project." Jin Seun rubbed his forehead. With a wry smile, he said, "Your Excellency, Commander, this is not the first time you have come here for the Hollow project, right? I have already told you that the new capital is not an important area, and there is no relevant information. If you are not a participant in the plan, how do you know the details of the whole plan? What nonsense do I believe?" The corners of Su-Ran's mouth twitched, and he said, "Don't play Tai Chi with me, okay? I really wanted a white wolf with empty gloves before, but now this information is of great importance to me. I used the information from Dongying and Liaomai. How about changing it with you?" Jin Seun shook his head. "I've also heard about their incident, so I won't change it." Su-Ran was slightly taken aback, and tentatively said, Area 51, and the spaceship under Dongying Kyushu Island." Jin Seun said these words in a calmer tone than Su-Ran. Su-Ran was furious. "You know everything and tell me you don't know the details of the whole plan. State secrets, can that be said casually? Jin Se-eun raised his eyebrows, but Su-ran heard some kind of hint from his words. Su-ran immediately suppressed her anger, put on a smiling face, and said, "Then let's do this, Sui Shield. I'll give you 500 shields." After collecting a large number of resource points from Guerrilla, Su-ran's confidence also strengthened 1,000. Jin Se-eun stretched out a finger. "We have a large number of people and a large base, and the threat of spore life trace is also great, up to 600. Su-ran said, "This time I want to know that the Hollow Project is not simply to snoop on information. You must not have noticed the situation of my fleet in recent days, right? Something big will happen." Jin Se-eun pondered for a moment, finally sighed, and said, "Okay. Come with me." With that said, Minister Jin stood up, led Su-ran out of his office, and went straight to the reference room. Many staff members I met along the way were a little terrified when they saw these two appearing together. After all, these two are now one of the most important people in the new capital, and the whole new capital will tremble if they stomp their feet. And after the Sky Brood War, the number of times Su-ran came to Jin Se-eun's place can be said to be counted on one's fingers. Jin Se-eun personally brought Su-ran to the reference room, found a stack of paper documents in the safe, handed them to Su-ran, and said, "I only have so much information about the Hollow Project, so take it back." "Can I take it back?" Su-ran was a little surprised as she held the not-so-thick stack of documents in her hand. Jin Se-eun treasured this thing as much as his life, and he spent a lot of energy to give it to him. How could he let him take it back? Minister Kim shook his head. "Now that its significance has been realized, it is of no great use to me." Su-ran was stunned for a moment before reacting, and said angrily, "Old Jin, you are too stinky and shameless." Jin Se-eun smiled, and said, "I'm not playing tricks. This thing is a state secret. If I let others know about the matter I handed over to you, then I will be subject to political investigation. If it doesn't work out, I will ask someone to roll it down." "What era is this? Who can take you down?" Su-ran said, "No, the Sui shield is gone. Not even a single one." Jin Se-eun said, "I took a risk. Besides, this document is likely to determine the fate of the Xinjiang Special Zone, right? Are you really embarrassed?" "Do you think I'm embarrassed?" Su-ran snorted, turned around and left with a document in her arms. "I'm an alien with good roots. I don't care who you are." Jin Se-eun couldn't help being a little stunned, looking at Su-ran's back as he staggered away step by step. He didn't know what to say for a moment. After a long while, Li Changzhao appeared from some corner and said, "Really, I feel that he is really an alien. His behavior is the same as that of a spore life, with an expression of 'I am a higher life and I am proud of it.'" Too much Jin Se-eun, but Su-ran had already gone far away, got into his own car, and started the return journey while flipping through the documents in his hand. However, before that, he first placed an order for the manufacture of 600 thought protection shield devices in the system. Chapter 42: The Whole Project. Chapter 42, Whole Project. Sitting in the car, Su-ran finished reading the relevant materials of the relatively simple whole plan. Jin Se-eun's information is very one-sided, not complete and comprehensive, more like a general outline, but it is enough for Su-ran. The whole project actually originated from the Soviet Union and the United States. It is said that the Soviet Union found a huge hole piercing the Earth in the North Pole, while the United States found a mysterious space under the Pacific Ocean. The Earth hole theory is not groundless. As early as the last century, John Cliff Simon Jr. proposed that the Earth is hollow. Kilometer opening. Simon became the most famous proponent of the Earth void theory. And the British writer McClelland even published a book, The Mystery of the Hollow Earth. The U.S. weather satellite SO7 has captured a photo of an open cave in the North Pole. It is bottomless, and it is unknown where it leads. Many people believe that this is the mysterious passage leading to the hole on the Earth. And not only that, in the Antarctic and the North Pole, there have been many scenes of suspected alien creatures and so-called UFOs flying across the sky. The United States and many countries in the world began research in this area as early as after World War II, exploring the universe and diving deep into the Earth due to various special reasons. Huaxia took the step of exploration about 20 years ago, looking for the so-called underground cavity. In recent years, exploration has been quite successful according to the description in the data. The Huaxia side explored along the Asian plate and the North Pole, and indeed found something. The huge black hole above the North Pole may really be the door to the so-called hole. And not only that, under the Earth, there is not only such a void, it seems to have a system of voids extending in all directions, like a huge underground labyrinth, buried deep under the continents and oceans, and even connected to the southeast of the Earth and northwest. However, Most of the hole has been submerged by seawater, and the entrance is not only the North Pole, the deep cavity structure possessed by the Earth shocked countless people at that time. However, most of the previous data were explorations of the underground cavity itself. For example, an underground entrance was discovered somewhere in XX. But because of the extremely deep ocean environment, deeper exploration has not been successful. The strangest question asked by the Chinese scientists at that time was, since the existence of underground cavities has been confirmed, why not make it public? The territory of the underground cavity may become a place of contention for all countries in the world in the future, but judging from the technology and discoveries at that time, almost no one can really expand the territory in the underground kingdom, and most importantly, although the underground kingdom is intricate, spreading and penetrating the entire Earth, 90% of the tunnels are swallowed by the deep sea water, so it seems understandable to make it public. It wasn't until a few years later that Tuaksha's technology made a breakthrough, allowing it to continue diving. And found a strange creature in the underground cave that was a non-terrestrial creature. The Tuaksha found it was a gecko-like thing, rooted under the ocean, clinging to the wall of an underground cave. Its whole body was transparent. It seemed to have no blood vessels or organs. But it was extremely aggressive. It was discovered in an instant. He broke through the protective clothing and got into the body of an explorer, causing the explorer to die on the spot. It was then brought to the mainland, where it died due to change in the stressful environment. Scientists at the time thought it was just a strange marine creature, but after deeper research, they found that its gene sequence and origin of life were completely different from those on Earth. It has no nucleic acid, but is composed of another chemical formula and unknown elements that have never appeared on the Earth since that year. Huaksha's whole plan has been formally established. People realize that there may be huge secrets hidden under the ground. The whole project has changed from a spontaneous scientific research and exploration group to an important institution with national characteristics. A lot of resources have been invested in this plan, and countless people have served it. As an important plan to explore alien life on Earth, the whole project has also become an absolute secret since then. All relevant content on the internet has disappeared as the intensity increased. More entrances were discovered. The entrance of Xiaoshe Xiankang in the mountain city, the entrance of Changbei Mountain Xianxi. The secrets under the ground are being unearthed little by little, and the new world map is being reconstructed. Su Ran glanced at the fuzzy underground map. Many places are unknown, but judging from the division, the underground structure does extend in all directions, as if the whole Earth has been penetrated by Hala. Subsequently, just 5 years ago, along with the technological cities, the Hollow Project had major discoveries in many places. They found a suspected ancient battlefield in the underground ocean of holes, and not only that, but also some traces of aircraft activities. This confirms a point on the Earth. It seems that there are traces of alien civilizations, but they never show up, but they can't shrink back one by one. Seeing this, Su Ran thought of the spore life and the group of cowards who were still hiding in the northeast plane. It seems that every alien civilization on Earth is in a state of bereaved dogs, and one is worse than the other. They don't dare to show their heads, and they don't know whether they are afraid of being beaten or are they afraid of something. Is someone watching them? Thinking of this, Su Ran couldn't help raising her head to look at the moon in the sky. Among the many mysterious science fiction theories, there are many monitoring systems claiming that the moon is the Earth. The discovery of the whole project is not only that, they also discovered the unknown spacecraft under the Dongying Island. It's just that before Huaksha found out, Dongpu seemed to have already begun to excavate this behemoth under their Kyushu Island at that time. In order not to attract attention, Huaksha only carried out long-distance observations, and noticed that most of the spaceship was buried under Kyushu Island, and only a small part was exposed. There is also a related photo in the file. Su Ran glanced at it. The picture is very blurry, but it can be roughly seen that the exposed part of this unknown spaceship is really circular, and it looks like a flying saucer as a whole. Is this really a flying saucer? According to the data, Dongying seems to have started the development of this giant flying saucer long ago. But the progress seems to be very slow, or there is progress, but Dongying has not made it public. Have you been in touch 5 years ago? Su Ran's eyes were dark. It's been 5 years, and he still regards other flying saucers as his ancestors. Do these Dongying people recognize their ancestors and think they were crazy? Chapter 43: The Amazing Plan. Or are the Japanese people and the flying saucer just using each other? Su Ran fell into deep thought regarding this flying saucer. What Yuan Licheng said made sense. If you find it, you must kill it. The spore life is a lesson from the past. There is no concept of peaceful coexistence with alien creatures. Even if there is, It is just mutual use. Beware of others stabbing you back at any time. As for such a partner, Su Ran deeply felt that having a spore life was enough. However, if the fleet dispatches rashly, even if it successfully annihilates the flying saucer under Kyushu Island, it is very likely that they will face the counterattack of the insect swarm next. Su Ran shook her head and continued to look down. Further down, there is another section introducing the discovery of the U.S. Emperor. They didn't find any alien spaceships in the underground cavity. They just found an entrance to the underground world on a certain island, where it was not swallowed by seawater, but instead had many prehistoric creatures. This record looks like Journey to the Center of the Earth because the island named Adam is relatively close to America. China, as exploration is also very limited. However, what can be confirmed is that there is no King Kong Godzilla in the underground space under that island. As for the details of the spaceship that Su Ran wanted to see that Lao Mei found on the moon, there were almost no details. This whole plan is obviously limited to the Earth, and of course there will be no situation on the moon. Su Ran could only sigh, a little disappointed at this time. His car had successfully arrived at the fleet headquarters, where Yuan Lichen had already been waiting. Li Yilan followed behind him. Seeing Su Ran, Li Yilan couldn't help but said, "You are back." Li Yilan's expression was resentful, and her tone was like that of a boudoir who had been abandoned at home. Su Ran was a little ashamed. "Didn't I go to Korea's resources?" Understand. With that said, Su Ran turned his head. "Yuan Lichen, you are said to have humiliated William and his country. How can such a thing happen?" Su Ran looked at Yuan Lichen innocently, said, "He told me how advanced their technology was, how they surpassed the times, so I reciprocated, so I had to tell him about our technology. This is normal, just chatting. I didn't expect him to be so stingy." Yuan Lichen nodded when he heard the words. "Okay, I understand. Tomorrow this kind of talk will spread throughout the entire Xinjiang Special Zone." Su Ran? "I thought you were asking me to blame you." "I'm just asking about the situation," Yuan Lichen said. "Didn't you also act defiantly when you met with the special envoy of Dongying? Your attitude towards William is also normal. The other party didn't have any suspicion. Just use this to promote your badness. Let me figure out the situation and take advantage of the situation to counter it. It should be normal, right?" By this time, they had passed through the hall and got on the elevator. At this time, Su Ran nodded and said, "Then what do you mean by coming out to greet me, show closeness, so as to pave the way for secretly attacking you?" Li Yilan was shocked when she heard this. "Are you going to attack Su Ran secretly? What kind of attack?" Yuan Li immediately shut up. Su Ran also looked a little embarrassed. Neither of them obviously wanted to tell Li Yilan about those things. Li Yilan is the kind of person who will never betray. But everyone knows that this girl is quite easy to deceive. She knows a lot, so maybe she won't be tricked out by others. Seeing such a scene, Li Yilan also understood something, hummed twice and said, "If you don't say it, don't say it, it's mysterious." At this moment, the elevator door stopped, and then the door opened. Li Yilan stepped forward, past Su Ran and Yuan Lichen, and walked out the door. First outside the elevator, there were still a few people who were going to take the elevator downstairs. They were a little surprised when they saw this scene. They started discussing after Su Ran and Yuan Lichen, who were embarrassed, also left one after another. "Just now, was that Captain Li? Why is she so angry? Did you see that Captain Li not only shook the faces of His Excellency Commander and Adjutant Yuan, but also passed them out of the elevator?" Su Ran and Yuan Lichen returned to their office, and Yuan Lichen said, "Your Excellency, Commander, have you got the whole plan?" As he said that, Yuan Lichen's gaze moved down slowly, and landed on the stack of documents in Su Ran's hand. Su Ran smiled lightly, handed over the document in his hand, and said, "That's right. This is the Hollow Project. Do you want to see it?" "No." Yuan Lichen smiled and said, "I think the less I know about this kind of thing, the better." Su Ran didn't force it, and Yuan Lichen didn't accept it, so he put away the relevant documents of the whole project. At this time, Yuan Lichen asked, "What about our expedition plan?" Su Ran paused slightly, and said, "Let's delay first." Yuan Lichen frowned slightly. It's not that simple to succeed in assassinating me, is it? Moreover, that flying saucer has been on Earth for countless years, and it was discovered at least 5 years ago, or even earlier. So there is no need to rush this matter." Su Ran sat down in his seat, pondered for a moment, and said slowly, "I don't believe it can fly in just a few days." Indeed, Su Ran was quite surprised when he heard Yuan Lichen say this before, but as he got the whole plan, his thoughts also changed. The flying saucer under Kyushu Island is undoubtedly an absolute threat, but it may not need to be eradicated immediately, especially when it was confirmed in the materials of the whole project that the flying saucer might have existed for hundreds of years or even a long time. Su Ran was even less worried. Even if it has recovered a lot, it won't be fully recovered in just a few dozen days. That being the case, don't rush to start with it. Moreover, even if they attack, it may not be necessary to break the agreement with the Zerg. Su Ran said, maybe we can let the swarm deal with them, or deal with them with the swarm. Yuan Lichen frowned, as if he didn't understand the meaning of Su Ran's rather convoluted words at the first moment. After a while, he realized something, and said in shock, you mean to say, do you want to tell the swarm about the existence of this flying saucer? Let them deal with it? Or even our fleet and the swarm cooperate to take down this unknown alien spaceship? That's right. Su Ran smiled, since everyone is an alien, why can't they join forces to fight another alien? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 44 Undercurrent. Hearing Su Ran's words, Yuan Lichen's eyes widened in shock. Su Ran still smiled and said, what's so surprising? That's the reason why the strong prey on the weak. No matter where the flying saucer under Kyushu Island came from or why it appeared here, it doesn't matter. As long as it is not my race to me into the swarm, it is enough, and it is foreseeable that it is now clearly we are in a weak state, and compared to it, the swarm and I are undoubtedly the strong. In the relationship between the jungle and the jungle under such a premise, it is not difficult for me to join forces with this swarm and wipe it out in its cradle. Yuan Lichen opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't say a word. After all what Su Ran said, he didn't think of it, but he didn't think about it at all. After all, Yuan Lichen is also a human being. As a human being, he saw the swarms invading the earth with his own eyes. In his eyes, the swarms were other races, and he never even thought about cooperating with the swarms. However, at this moment, seeing Su Ran utter these words logically, Yuan Lichen couldn't help but fell into deep thoughts. Su Ran. Is it really an extraterrestrial creature? Su Ran seemed to have seen through what he was thinking, but Su Ran didn't say anything, nor did she explain anything. He has not forgotten the wish to wipe out the swarm, but this does not mean that there are no other possibilities. Judging from the current situation, it would undoubtedly be the best situation if they could work together with the swarm to annihilate the unknown flying saucer under Kyushu Island. Firstly, this will not tear up the treaty in advance, so that the new capital will still be safe. Secondly, with the swarm as companions, they can also bear the danger of fighting the flying saucer and the unknown alien life in it, be it the spore life or the cowards in the northeast plain. They all left a deep impression on Su Ran, and a reason that is, don't underestimate any alien race. They are not the green-skinned big heads with huge heads and weak bodies in the movies. Any dogs that can travel across the starry sky and appear on the earth, even if they are bereaved dogs, are not pairs. Their life characteristics, race and technology may even be completely in your hands beyond comprehension. If you are careless, you will have to pay a very heavy price. Now Su Ran also understands why the Zerg swarm is so attentive and vigilant to alien life. Of course, whether the swarm will comply with Nuo Siren's plan is another matter. Yuan Lichen was silent for a moment, then said, that old beauty, procrastinate. Su Ran said, go ahead, contact the spore life, and prepare to share the news with the swarm. Let's see how they react. However, this plan is currently kept secret from everyone, and this must be kept. The spore life knows they claim to be a higher life every day, but their mouths are not as strict as that of a human being. In fact, what Su Ran was sure of was that as long as he shared the news of the alien spaceship to the swarm, with the prudence of the swarm, he would launch an attack immediately. And cooperation. Su Ran's goal is actually still on that city-killing cannon. That thing cannot fall into the hands of the swarm. Yuan Lichen looked upright, and immediately turned his head and left in a hurry. Rao, his steps of leaving today seemed a little messy, which exposed his complicated mood. Leaving Su Ran's office, Yuan Lichen stayed in his office for more than 2 hours, issued a few routine orders and messages, then left his office, left a fleet headquarters building all the way, drove by himself, and went to the new in the urban area of the capital. In fact, half an hour before he left the fleet headquarters building, Jungsha Hoshino, who was arranged to live here as a representative of Japan, had already left by car and entered the new capital city on the grounds of visiting the new capital city. In fact, these two people secretly agreed to meet in the new capital. It is still the dark box of the KTV last time when Yuan Lichen came here. Junxia Hoshino had already been sitting in the corner and waiting quietly for a long time. Seeing Yuan Lichen come in, Hoshino Junxia smiled, stood up, and said, "You are really on time, Adjutant Yuan." Yuan Lichen just nodded slightly at this. "To be honest, we should change the meeting place. If you trust me, I should choose this kind of place next time. I think it would be great if we could talk openly next time, wouldn't it?" Hoshino Junxia smiled. "Any secret conversation itself has a huge risk. However, I want to congratulate you, Adjutant Yuan." "Congratulations for what?" Yuan Lichen asked knowingly. "Your Excellency the Commander obviously trusts you very much." Of course, what Junxia Hoshino said was exactly what Yuan Lichen took the initiative to greet Su Ran today, and returned to his office after chatting and laughing with Su Ran Han. Yuan Lichen smiled slightly, sat down on the other side, and said, "Your Excellency the Commander and I fought all the way from Bingcheng to Xinjiang. Of course we have some trust. But Miss Hoshino, you want properly remind your Mr. William that he is now spreading bad words against Su Ran, which will only make him more wary of you." Junxia Hoshino nodded. "I understand, but, if he is wary of William, he won't be wary of you and me, right?" Just kidding. "Then, how is our plan going?" "Adjutant Yuan, but I've been waiting for good news from you." Yuan Lichen shook his head. "Everything is planned. But it won't be so fast. You must know that the control of the fleet is closely related to the authority. Before pulling Su Ran off the horse, I must first obtain the highest authority he has, or know how to modify the highest authority, and this matter cannot be rushed, of course." Junxia Hoshino said, "Adjutant Yuan, we can understand your caution. But please speed up. After all, time waits for no one. Our patience is limited." Yuan Lichen smiled and said, "Of course I know that I can't refuse the conditions you offered me, but the risk I have to take in this matter is quite large." So, as he said that, Yuan Lichen showed greed appropriately. Hoshino Junxia understood. She sneered non-committally in her heart, and immediately said quietly, "No problem. Adjutant Yuan, we will do our best to satisfy all your requests, and here, our people will do our best to help you provide help. Then, next time, please write your new request and give it to me. I will submit it to my superior for review. However, I believe you will be able to get a satisfactory answer." Chapter 45. I believe. Yuan Lichen stayed for a while longer, and talked with Junxia Hoshino for about 30 minutes before he stood up, left in a hurry, got into his car, and headed towards the fleet headquarters with a cautious look. And after confirming from his subordinates that Yuan Lichen had left without any abnormality, Junxia Hoshino stood up from his seat. After a moment of silence, she walked out of the private room, put on a headscarf, and walked for about 10 minutes in the now noisy streets of Xinjiang, and entered the temporary church of the Holy Order of Xinjiang through an inconspicuous back door in a certain small room in the depths. Junxia Hoshino saw a white-skinned middle-aged man with a sinister face as soon as he sat down. Hoshino Junxia said, "Everything is going well. Su Ran has a high degree of trust in Yuan Lichen. That stupid commander didn't realize that his subordinates had been bought by us." Half of the Caucasian man's face was hidden in the shadow of the room. His voice was hoarse like a crow. "Yuan Lichen, is his words believable? It should be credible." Hoshino Junxia said, "He is a greedy and ambitious person. This time he put forward more demands on us, hoping to get better treatment after coming to North America. Therefore, I think I really want to become king on my own." "Okay." The white man in the shadow sneered, "Hold on to him, and promise him whatever you want. Anyway, when the time comes, he really comes, so it's not up to him to decide." Hoshino Junxia also smiled and said, "But it may take time." In the conversation just now, he was not so active in attacking the flying saucer under Kyushu Island. He seems to think that the time is not ripe, so urge him. The Caucasian man said coldly, "Tell him, once this transaction starts, it cannot be delayed. Junxia Hoshino, you should know how important that cannon is to human beings. If our empire can get the city-killing artillery and the Huaxia fleet, then by then, your country will be the first to be saved by us." Hoshino Junxia showed excitement when he heard the words, stood up, bowed and said, "I understand. I will do my best." "Okay, you go back." It was Hoshino Junxia who said goodbye and left. When she left the room, she heard the white man muttering to himself in the shadows with sarcasm, "The commander of the fleet is just a fool, that's all he." Hoshino Junxia left here, and did not return to the headquarters immediately, but went to a nearby restaurant. That's right, it's a restaurant. This is a half-military, half-civilian post-apocalyptic restaurant, which was jointly opened by local snakes and the military. Here, the payment is made by bartering, and the store owner condensed valuation. Moreover, this shop is not the only one in the new capital. The emergence of such a hotel also benefits from the absolutely safe environment of the Xinjiang Special Zone. Moreover, this kind of restaurant is quite popular. When Hoshino Junxia came here, not to mention the overcrowding, there were no empty seats. Many northerners talked and drank, the voices were quite loud, and it seemed a bit noisy and chaotic here. Hinata Koyama and Mikal Kanai have already taken up positions in the corner, and Junxia Hoshino came in and took a seat. They are all from Dongying, and their faces are not much different from those of Chinese people, and they deliberately did not speak Japanese, did not attract much attention in such a noisy restaurant, talking in Chinese. Even if it is a secret thing, will not attract attention. Koyama Hinata said, "How is it? Is it going well?" "It's going well." Junxia Hoshino breathed out a little tiredly. The formulaic smile on her face before had completely disappeared. She said, "The Holy Inquisition didn't notice anything. Surrender to them with a fleet. What does this mean?" Koyama Hinata was a little surprised. Kanai Kwa also looked at Hoshino Junxia nervously. His Chinese was the worst, so he tried not to speak. "I think Yuan Lichen may have noticed something, or in other words, he has already confessed the truth to Su Ran." Hoshino Junxia shook his head and said, "I can't judge well either. People are a little elusive." Koyama Hinata frowned. "Will it affect our plan?" "Probably not." Hoshino Junxia shook his head. "The new capital city is full of fish and dragons, and the situation is too chaotic. Yesterday, William just got stuck with Su Ran. Until now we still can't confirm whether Su Ran is from Earth or not." Koyama Hinata and Kanai Kwa looked at each other, and they were silent after a while. Koyama Hinata said, "Don't worry about it so much, Junxia, let's just do what we can do." Kanai Kwa couldn't help but sigh in awkward Chinese. Who would have thought that China is the most powerful in the last days? Our country's animation, American movies, talk about those science fiction things every day, and the result, Hoshino Junxia couldn't help laughing when she heard this sentence, but this time it was a sincere smile, bright and beautiful. How can reality and film and television works be compared together? How silly. Kanai Kwa couldn't help scratching his head, giggling, and at this moment, with a yell, a waiter came up with the food, and said with a smile, "3, your pot of meat." "Sorry, there are a lot of people today, and the food is a bit slow, but you come on, we are right, there are not many places that can cook meat in pots, and the chefs here are all pre-apocalyptic chefs." Junxia Hoshino smiled back, and when the eloquent waiter left, she picked up the chopsticks with a smile, and said in a relaxed manner, "Anyway, the only way to eat serious meals is here now. Right? Let's get started. The last time I was on a business trip to Shenzhen, my favorite dish was the pot-wrapped meat from the Northeast. I really didn't expect that there would be a chance to eat it after the end of the world." As Hoshino Junxia said, he grabbed the piece first, and then realized that the two people on the opposite side were not moving, so he raised his head involuntarily, and looked at the two colleagues on the opposite side. "You?" Koyama Hinata looked at the bustling restaurant, the steaming pot of meat and the guests coming and going, and at some point tears welled up in his eyes. "When will our country be restored to this state?" Kanai Kwa also looked a little gloomy after a moment of silence. Hoshino Junxia put down the chopsticks in his hand, and slowly showed a sweet smile. "Yes. We are working hard for this, aren't we? I believe that as long as we keep working hard, one day the country will return to its former glory." Chapter 46 Turmoil. At 22:15 on the evening of October 25th, the former Xinjiang airport and the current Xinjiang fleet headquarters building in a dark single dormitory, Yan Hulong stood in front of the clean floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the airport runway in the distance. Because of the power control, the distant Xinjiang city had completely turned off the lights as early as 2100 hours, and most of the city was already in darkness at this time. Most people have already fallen asleep. After all, the end of the world is not the same as before. Even though the new capital city is the only absolutely safe place in the world, it has still become a restricted area for human activities at night. So is the fleet at this point in time, except for the patrolling guards and some people who still have special tasks to complete. Almost everyone has fallen asleep, and half of the lights in the headquarters building have gone out. Yan Hulong, as a representative of Kyoto with special missions, actually has almost no actual work in the fleet that requires him to complete. Although he was an awakener and a soldier, Qiao Xiangjin did not arrange a place for him on his destroyer. Therefore, in the previous days, at this point in time, Yan Hulong had already fallen asleep early. Just like his other colleague He Hang, but today, he didn't, because he knew that the commander of the fleet today, That is, the unknown creature with a human name like Suran was about to carry out a crazy plan, cooperate with the swarm. Now Suran is firmly in control of the fleet. As long as he does not want others to know, others will not know, even if it is difficult to detect the wind. But only one party is an exception, that is the military. No matter how powerful the fleet is now, the military is still the head snake of the Xinjiang Special Zone, and even the manager of the Xinjiang city. It is difficult to deceive the military about Suran's actions, and what annoys Yan Hulong the most is that Suran didn't hide from the military at all. Even a day ago, Qiao Xiangjun was generously told, and through Qiao Xiangjun's mouth, this crazy cooperation plan was passed on to the upper echelons of the military, and today is the day when the cooperative negotiation team starts under Yan Hulong's watchful eyes. Two Nightingale aircraft parked at an inconspicuous position on the extreme edge of the airport were slowly starting. Just minutes ago, Yan Hulong saw with his own eyes that more than a dozen people boarded the two Nightingale aircraft, and there was even a representative of the Spore Life, Liu Tingting, immediately afterwards. The two Nightingale aircraft took off vertically from the ground with the help of the anti-gravity engine under Yan Hulong's fierce and complex eyes, and quickly disappeared from Yan Hulong's field of vision. Yan Hulong's face was extremely ugly, and he clenched his fists unconsciously. No one in sight. This is so defiant. Sure enough, people who are not of my race will have different hearts. The vigilance of the first important personnel is necessary. This Suran is no different from the swarm. At the same moment, the new capital city, the government district, most of the new capital city has been plunged into darkness, but the government area and the military area are special existences, and the electricity is fully supplied. Li Jizhen, a major general of the military region, was driving through the night in a car. The dim light from the street lights outside shone into the car, making his face look a little cloudy and uncertain from time to time. The soldier who was driving glanced nervously at Li Ji behind him, and quickly moved his eyes away as if he was afraid of being discovered, obviously fearing the major general behind him. Fortunately, the current Xinjiang city is no longer congested than before, and there are not many vehicles at night. Soon, they arrived at their destination, under the office building in the government district. It was dark at night, but the office buildings in the government district were still brightly lit. I don't know how many people were working overtime all night. As soon as the car stopped, Li Ji opened the car door, went upstairs with an angry gesture that anyone could see, and broke into Jin Xiao's office regardless of Li Changzhao's obstruction. Still, he hadn't forgotten to slam the door shut to prevent the ensuing conversation from being heard by anyone who shouldn't know it. After waiting for this moment, Li Ji scolded his head and face. Damn it, what does he mean? You must give us an explanation. Jin Xian, who was sitting behind the desk, had a smile on his face. Okay, Li Ji, you came at the right time. The four of you are here, and we can start a game of mahjong. Xiao Li, give me the automatic mahjong table. Move here. Li Ji was taken aback for a moment, only then did he have time to observe the room. He found that there were already two people in the room who had arrived before him. Both of these people are people Li Ji knew. Sitting close to Jin Xian was He Hang, the special commissioner from Kyoto. He Hang's face was also quite ugly, gloomy as if dripping water, and his gloomy eyes glanced at another person sitting in the corner from time to time. Li Ji was more familiar with that person. It was Qiao Xiangjun, the former sniper Qiao Xiangjun who they placed next to Suran. Qiao Xiangjun was the same as before. There was no excessive expression on his face, it was simply expressionless. And he didn't even seem to notice He Hang's somewhat spicy gaze. This, Jin Xian rubbed his temples and said, sit down. Seeing such a battle, Li Ji couldn't help but lose his anger. He sat down in a corner, looked at Qiao Xiangjun, and said, what does Suran mean? To cooperate with the swarm? And he told the military today? And there is no room for discussion with us. Before Qiao Xiangjun could speak, He Hang said coldly, I said Major General Li, isn't the answer to these questions you asked obvious? He is an extraterrestrial life, and he wants to cooperate with another extraterrestrial life. I have to discuss it with you? Do you really naively think that he is on our side? That is just a stopgap measure. He can conclude the so-called peace treaty with the swarm. Why can't he go further with the swarm? Military cooperation? This series of rhetorical questions made Li Ji frown and fell into deep thought. Jin Xian kept rubbing his temples, and although he was looking at everyone, he seemed to be like the matter is too troublesome and I don't want to express my opinion. This is the usual style of government officials. He Hang obviously learned it before Li Ji's arrival, so he didn't look at Jin Xian at this time, but looked at Li Ji with burning eyes, obviously hoping to get the support of the current representative of the young Beijing military faction that would allow him, a lonely man from Kyoto, to have real power and supporters, and at this time, Qiao Xiangjun finally spoke. Old he, when you say this, don't forget that you can sit here alive and talk nonsense because Su Ran made a treaty with the Zerg swarm. Chapter 47 Why? As soon as Qiao Xiangjun said this, He Hang's face changed slightly because Qiao Xiangjun was not explaining anything, but clearly expressing his opinion. He Hang said in displeasure, don't forget your identity, you are from the army, are you going to collude with this extraterrestrial creature now? Li Ji also frowned slightly. Qiao Xiangjun said, whether Su Ran is an alien creature is not something you can judge. Of course I remember who I was before, but I also remember who I am now. Please don't forget that I am also a member of the fleet. One member. What Qiao Xiangjun said was neither humble nor overbearing, but showed a tit-for-tat attitude. He Hang immediately changed his color, and immediately looked at Jin Xian and Li Ji, implying, don't you take responsibility for this guy's appearance. However, Jin Xian remained silent. Li Ji looked at Qiao Xiangjun, and said, then Su Ran this time. Why? Li Ji asked himself that he knew Qiao Xiangjun quite well, and he was by no means a person who was loyal or disregarded right from wrong. After leaving the army and joining the fleet, although Qiao Xiangjun was a spy on Li Ji's side in name, in fact, Li Ji, it is clear that Qiao Xiangjun has his own judgment in everything he does. He doesn't want the military to suffer losses, but he also doesn't want Su Ran to suffer losses. But Qiao Xiangjun was still a human being. At the critical moment, Li Ji believed that Qiao Xiangjun must be thinking on the human side. Now that Qiao Xiangjun is on Su Ran's side, it means that the situation may not be as bad as imagined. Qiao Xiangjun took a look at Li Ji and said, to be honest, I don't really know. All I know is that his target is an alien flying saucer under Kyushu Island. Besides, isn't it a sign of sincerity for him to inform in advance? What's an explanation if I don't know clearly? He Hang Dao, to contact the swarm, he needs to use Spore Life. Every Spore Life is under our monitoring. Who do you think Su Ran can hide? Qiao Xiangjun shook his head and said, Su Ran may just want to borrow a knife to kill people. But I can guarantee that he will not fight against humans with a swarm. If he intends to do that, I don't think anyone will be able to stand here today. What are you talking about? He Hang changed color. I think you have been brainwashed by Spore Life. Whether I've been brainwashed or not, I don't care about this matter, and neither do you. Qiao Xiangjun stood up, glanced at He Hang, and said, that's the truth, I know. Su Ran said that it is indeed inappropriate to mention, but there should be his considerations. After all, everyone knows the current situation after the Battle of Sky Brood. Kyoto began to intervene in an all-round way. Peace brings not only survival and new life, but also suspicion and resistance. From the first day of the establishment of the new Beijing Special Zone, the attitude of the capital has gradually begun to change. I still don't think Su Ran and the fleet will become a threat to human beings, because if he really wanted to do this, he could have used Spore Life as the crew to create a group of all extraterrestrial creature teams. After Qiao Xiangjun said these words, he was silent for a moment, then turned his head and left the office. Li Ji fell into silence. Qiao Xiangjun's words made his hair stand on end. That's right, the staff in Su Ran's fleet can be completely replaced by Spore Life. In that case, Su Ran will cooperate with the swarm. The three extraterrestrial creatures swept away, and humans are still playing a fart. That's the end of mankind. Thinking of this level, Li Ji felt as if he was thinking about some horror movie, and his expression changed instantly. But He Hang's expression changed a lot. He patted the table, and said, this is the person you cultivated? I think he has been instigated by that shitty commander, right? Major General Li, Minister Jin, don't forget, this is Yaksha, our country, and our territory, and it is not up to others to act wildly here. With that said, He Hang flicked his sleeves, pushed open the door and walked out, startling Li Changzhao, who was waiting at the door for a moment. Only Li Ji and Jin Xian were left in the room. Li Ji looked at Jin Xian, although he didn't take the initiative to speak, but the meaning in his eyes was very clear. What's your attitude? Jin Xian pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked, what do you think is the attitude of Jingdu? Li Ji didn't expect Jin Xian to hold back for so long to ask such a diametrically opposed question, so he couldn't help wondering, what kind of attitude? I mean, what is the military's attitude towards Su Ran and his fleet? Jin Xian exhaled slowly, and said, have you ever thought about what the commander and his fleet did and how doing it depends on whether he's a human or an extraterrestrial creature, but it also depends on the attitude of Kyoto. You mean? Li Ji is not a fool either. Jin Xian has already said this, and he also had a clear understanding in an instant. That's right. Jin Xian said, Qiao Xiangjin is right. Since the establishment of the new Beijing Special Zone, the capital has been on guard. Although the top officials didn't say anything, this is Huaxia, and this is a country. Su Ran's fleet is not in our system, but it possesses the power to outshine all heroes, and it is divided into the military. From this point of view, what is the difference between the first important person in China and the insect swarm? It's just that the swarm is at the front. We are all humans, and you and I are both on the front line. We are the ones who took down the Xinjiang Special Zone with Su Ran before. We don't feel it is obvious, but we are actually caught in it and blinded. In fact, the top brass have started a boycott. If one day, the insect swarm is wiped out, it is impossible for Huaxia to split this oil for Su Ran. Even if Su Ran's goal is not on this planet, as a country, we must use the awareness and preparation to control him and his fleet. Li Ji took a breath and said, that's right. Because of this, since a month ago, the transportation of resources in Kyoto has become slow, but even now, the swarm has blocked 3 sides, and Kyoto is still vigilant. Su Ran, that's right. Huaxia is a country. Jin Xian said, it is important to fight against the swarm, but no country wants to split another force from its own country. Is such a thing the same as Huaxia being overwhelmed by the swarm? The different Su Ran also noticed this, so he gradually became estranged from us. It was only these days that I realized that he contacted Gaoli for the things he couldn't get, but it was actually his attitude. His fleet will be independent of us from this point of view. Today's matter has become clearer. Chapter 48. Welcome to the Cloud City. The border between Xinjiang Special Zone and Liaoning Province. Tongmaya Oki was standing on his destroyer looking down at this very moment. Her destroyer was in the sky above the clouds at an altitude of 10,000 meters, in optical and electronic cloaking at the same time. It was cloudless today, and looking down from her position, she could see the 2 Nightingale aircraft slowly approaching and slowly stopping at the junction area below, shimmering in the darkness of the night. On the other side, in the direction of Liao Province, is a black city. From Tongmaya Okiu's point of view, under the dark sky, in the sky at the border of Liao Province and Xinjiang Special Zone, there's like a winding black mountain range, where the Kuroshio spreads and spreads in the sky. There is no end in sight. It was densely packed with migratory locusts and sky patrollers. The few Gallo, which once appeared in the Xinjiang Special Zone, had disappeared at this time, and was hidden by the sea of monsters on the ground. At the border, the monsters surged like a wave, and their hissing echoed far away in the night, like the howling of a fierce ghost. The blockade they formed was still tight and complete, and it was impossible to see at a glance to the end. The swarm's blockade of the Xinjiang Special Zone was finally fully formed 2 months after the establishment of the Xinjiang Special Zone. Now from the outside world, even a fly cannot cross the line from the direction of Liao Province, Eastern Mongolia and Longjiang Province. Tongmaya Okiu fell silent while watching this scene. She knew that the negotiation between the spore life and the insect swarm had just begun. Same moment, Xinjiang Special Zone, the city of Red Leaves Lafayette area. A convoy is slowly driving into the mountains at this time. The weather in the northeast has completely turned cold, and the nights in the mountains are even colder. The trees have already withered, and there is nothing to see, and this team is obviously not here to see the scenery in a secluded and deserted place. Su Ran ordered the convoy to stop before jumping off behind him. The members of the fleet combat team headed by Zhu Feng got out of the car one after another, and Jin Zhiang also followed behind in a daze, secretly grabbed Zhu Feng's clothes, and asked curiously, I said, Captain Zhu Feng, what are we here for? So mysterious at night. Zhu Fengmu replied blankly, just follow your excellency, commander. Don't ask questions. As he said that, Zhu Feng led his team and followed Su Ran forward. At the same time, he dispersed a few soldiers to investigate the situation elsewhere, in case there was something dangerous in this woodland. That would be dangerous to your excellency, the commander. Create a threat. Jin Zhiang pouted. What? I am also a member of the fleet, and I have the right to know. Sorry, there is no such thing as the right to know in our fleet. A voice sounded from behind her, and Chen Han walked past her with a smile, glanced at her, and said with a smile, no matter what, I represent our welcome, Representative Kim. Only then did Jin Zhiang smile, and then his face collapsed again. No, why didn't I make an announcement or ceremony when I joined the fleet? Minister Park thought I was from their side, and the angel called me every day. Chen Han replied with a smile. Then why do you have to be ordered by him every day? Jin Zhiang was a little stunned. However, Chen Han had already stepped past her and followed Zhu Feng forward. Only that soft voice came from the front. Besides, if I were you, I would be lucky. I am a fresh fleet member's known Jin Hyang was a little dazed at this time. Almost everyone had gone far away, except for the soldiers who stayed behind in the convoy. She was the only one standing in the lonely night forest. She couldn't help being surprised, and hurriedly quickened her pace, following the big troops. Move forward. The light of Laffa Mountain in the dark night is dim, and there are occasional insects in the woodland that don't die in winter and keep screaming, which makes people feel creepy. Jin Hyang can only follow the light of the flashlights of Zhu Feng and the others in front, step by step. In the back, walk through the woodland. It's just that our representative Jin didn't have such woodland experience. He stumbled and fell while walking. Fortunately, a soldier in front turned his head and gave her a hand, so that Jin Hyang would not be left behind. Jin Hyang couldn't help being a little speechless. What are you doing out so late? Can't we sleep well? Unfortunately, no one responded to her, and Jin Hyang didn't know about the negotiation between the Spore Life and the Swarm tonight. To her, she didn't really know why the commander, Su Ran, set off so late in person, and soon, the answer to this question appeared in front of her as the team moved forward. Just when Jin Hyang felt that her legs were starting to hurt and she couldn't walk, the team finally stopped. At this time, Jin Hyang was even more at a loss, because the place where they stopped now is almost the same as before. At most, the terrain is gentler, but the surrounding area is still woodland. No, at this moment, Jin Hyang's eyes widened because right in front of her, the light began to distort, and the scene of the woodland slowly disappeared in the distortion, but what emerged from it was an astonishing colossus. The pitch-black hull, the huge hull that cannot be seen at a glance. A huge battleship is parked in the woodland of Mount Laffa, like a dormant giant beast, and because optical invisibility was turned on before, this place looks no different from other places. But now, standing in the shadows under the night sky and looking up, Jin Hyang couldn't even see the top of this behemoth, let alone get a glimpse of the whole battleship in this dense forest. There is such a huge ship hidden. Jin Hyang noticed that except for Chen Han and Su Ran, everyone else showed a look of shock. Just when people thought that the Awakener and the Destroyer were already the most powerful fleet forces in Su Ran's hands, who would have thought that there was such a behemoth hidden in the Xinjiang Special Zone? Jin Hyang finally understood why he was here, and why it was a team of ordinary people like Zhu Feng and the others instead of a team of awakened people like Li Rui, standing under such a battleship. Jin Hyang felt some kind of awe from the heart. Out of thin air, human beings always have a natural awe and fear of huge silent objects, and at this moment, Su Ran, who was walking in the front, finally turned his head slowly, looked at the crowd, opened his arms, and said with a smile, "Everyone, welcome to the Yuncheng." His voice was not loud, but it resounded in everyone's heart, making it difficult for people to recover for a long time. Chapter 49 Promotion. Early morning on October 26th, Su Ran appeared on time at the fleet headquarters building at the former Xinjiang airport. Tong Mayaoki was already waiting in his office. "Captain Tong, it looks like I haven't slept all night." Su Ran closed the door yet. Tong Mayaoki nodded, with a look on his face that I couldn't sleep. "The negotiation with the Swarm was completed before midnight, but you were not in the building, so I had to wait here." Su Ran couldn't help coughing dryly, and said seriously, "I'm going to Mount Laffa." Tong Mayaoki raised his head, looked at Su Ran, and realized that this was the commander, who seemed to be about to tell him something. "I arranged a battleship for you." Su Ran sat down in his seat and said, "A starship-class battleship that far surpasses the Awakener and the Destroyer in the current fleet, can be said to be the cruise ship among starships. Ship interstellar-class battleship?" Tong Mayaoki looked surprised. This is really surprising. She didn't expect that there was such a thing in Su Ran's hand, and it never showed up. Thinking of this level, Tong Mayaoki couldn't help but feel relieved, and said, "No wonder, Commander. You were confident in the Battle of the Sky Brood, and you were not afraid of Fujialo, so you still have the trump card. You think too much, big girl." "I was so scared that I almost peed." Su Ran uttered the truth in his heart, and then he showed an inscrutable smile, and said, "These are old things. Of course, I hope you can keep the existence of this battleship a secret." "I understand." Tong Mayaoki responded, "The current Xinjiang Special Zone is a mixed bag, and I also understand the importance of keeping secrets." Only then did Su Ran smile slightly, throw out the topic, and said, "Okay. Then, Captain Tong, do you want to work on that battleship?" Tong Mayaoki was really surprised this time. She opened her bright red lips and looked at Su Ran in shock, but Su Ran realized that the girl was wrong. She probably thought that she was inviting her to be the captain of the Yuncheng. Su Ran hurriedly chuckled, and said, "I'll give you two choices. The first is to board the Enlightenment and become the captain of an Enlightenment, The second is to board the Yunchang and become the Yunchang adjutant. It was Tong Mayaokyu who showed some embarrassment. This smart mercenary obviously realized that she was thinking too much, but she had a natural beauty advantage. She pursed her lips and smiled to cover up her embarrassment. Su Ran nodded slightly. Once the Cloud City lifts off, the captain of the apocalypse should be finalized. After all, the two awakeners cannot live without a captain for a day. Although there are 3 destroyers in the fleet that are already under the control of the Queen, in a short time, Su Ran does not want the Queen to control the awakener. Therefore, Su Ran looked at Tong Mayaokyu in front of him, and said with a smile, "So, which one do you plan to choose?" Tong Mayaokyu was still very happy. She knew that this meant that Su Ran really regarded her as a confidant. There are many kinds of confidants. Some cronies are the kind of people who can be trusted but cannot be entrusted to, because not many people have enough ability, while some cronies are undoubtedly able to be trusted and have sufficient ability. The superiors will feel relieved to deliver them greater rights and responsibilities. Tong Mayaokyu is very fortunate that her ability has been recognized by the commander before being found by Su Ran from the Xinjiang casino. Tong Mayaokyu's greatest wish in life was nothing more than to die well, not to die by the hands of humans, nor by the hands of swarms. But on that day, Su Ran found her in the casino in the new capital, and her life changed drastically. From then on she has become the captain of an air fleet. Her vision is achievable, she is in charge of her own destiny. Therefore, she has always been very grateful and loyal to Su Ran. She has done her best to complete the things Su Ran arranged for her, and now, Su Ran wants her to go further. The excitement in Tong Mayaokyu's heart is self-evident. Figurative, but Tong Mayaokyu did not blindly promise or to make a choice. She knew that Su Ran's trust was not a joke, and every position in the fleet was not a joke. Tong Mayaokyu took a deep breath and asked, "Going to the battlefield of Japan with the swarm? Will the interstellar battleship you mentioned set sail?" "No." Su Ran replied without any hesitation. If he planned to let the Cloud City go to the battlefield in the clear, then he wouldn't have to hide the Cloud City in the Lava Mountain area. It was he who needed his trump card to remain unknown, so he hid it. After all, the insect swarm needs to be guarded against, the spore life needs to be guarded against, and even the military needs to be guarded against. Su Ran needs to keep a strong enough backup. Of course, if there were no insect swarms participating in this battle, Su Ran would certainly attack with all his strength, but since he had already pulled the insect swarm into the water, he didn't have to go all out. But Tong Mayaokyu pondered for a moment, and said, "I'll be the captain." Su Ran didn't ask Tong Mayaokyu too much about the reason for her choice, but said with a smile, "Okay, you can choose one of the 2 apocalypse ships. I'm giving the lady the right to choose first." Tong Mayaokyu stood up now, leaned over and said, "Thank you, Commander." Su Ran smiled slightly and said, "Okay, this matter will be finalized here, but all of this must be done in secret. At least before the fleet lifts off, the less you will become the captain of the Enlightenment, the better people know. I see. Well. Next, let's talk about yesterday's situation. I think you should have guessed it, right?" Tong Mayaokyu took a tentative look at Su Ran, but Su Ran just smiled and said nothing. He had already guessed the general idea, but he wouldn't say it. What if he guessed wrong? Wouldn't he slap himself in the face with a confident look? Seeing this, Tong Mayaokyu said, "The swarm has promised." According to the representative of the spore life, the swarm is as excited as ants on a hot pot when they hear the existence of alien creatures. And they regard this as a signal that our fleet and the swarm have repaired, so they accepted our invitation to cooperate with each other. Su Ran nodded when she heard the words, and said, "That's true. The swarm is also a group of cowards. They are most afraid of the existence of other alien civilizations. Once they see them, they will definitely destroy them. Therefore, they will never let Rumpu be under their control. I don't care about the flying saucer, but the only thing I'm curious about is that there are quite a few insect swarms under the ocean. Haven't they discovered any abnormalities under the Kyushu Island in Japan?" The last sentence was obviously Su Ran talking to himself, without any intention of asking Tong Mayaokyu to answer. Chapter 50 Tomahawk Bomber. After Tong Mayaokyu left, Su Ran found Qiao Xiangjun and offered him an olive branch. Qiao Xiangjun was quite surprised by this. He sat across from Su Ran's desk, stared at Su Ran closely, and said, "I'm a well-known spy. If you arrange me to be the captain of the Awakener, aren't you afraid that I'll betray you and bring it to you?" Su Ran smiled and said, "In the fleet, I have the highest authority. Even if I die, the highest authority will not be transferred or disappeared. On the contrary, yours will be banned instead. So, what do I have to worry about?" "Your answer." Qiao Xianjun said. It really leaves me speechless. Su Ran just smiled slightly, and said softly, it doesn't matter what kind of boy, spy, etc. Qiao Xianjun, I understand you. You will only do what you think is right, as long as I am doing what we do for each other. You will not stand on the opposite side of me for things that are recognized by everyone. Qiao Xianjun was stunned for a moment, fell into silence for a moment, and then said, I can understand what you said. Will we always stand on the same front? Probably so. Qiao Xianjun was silent for about half a minute this time, then slowly stood up and said, okay. Then I will be the captain of the Enlightenment. Su Ran smiled, okay. I'll assign you an Enlightenment later, haha, we have 2 Enlightenment in our fleet. You should know that the other one was promised by me before you came. Yes, and I've given the lady first choice, so you just wait until she's finished. Qiao Xianjun couldn't help being curious. It's okay, I'm not a fussy person. Anyway, aren't all warships the same? I'm curious, who is this person? Su Ran said, you will know after a while. But your promotion to the captain of the Enlightened One must be kept secret, and don't let anyone know about it, including the military. Okay. No problem. Qiao Xianjun pondered for a while, then quickly agreed, and said, however, there is one more thing. Say let's chat next time, don't be gay in the gay world. After saying these words, Su Ran was dumbfounded. Qiao Xianjun turned around, strode away, and still didn't forget to close the door. But Su Ran was stunned, standing where she was, with the words Qiao Xianjun said floating in her mind. Next, everyone who saw Su Ran today would be surprised by a strange question asked by Su Ran. Do I look gay in gay? Do I look gay in gay? Do I look gay in gay? Most of the people fled after being questioned, at a loss. In the fleet, even within a day, rumors spread that the commander may be a gay man. After all, it has been such a long time. Nor does a commander's wife exist. In this regard, Su Ran can be said to have the heart to beat the table. Of course, this matter can only be regarded as a trivial matter. After the 2 captains of the Enlightenment were finalized, Su Ran had to consider the destroyer left by Tong Myaokyu and Qiao Xianjun as captains of the Enlightenment. The captain is vacant. After pondering for a while, Su Ran decided to replace them with a queen, and liberated a large number of people so that they don't have to recruit temporarily. Therefore, Su Ran immediately opened the production channel and began to create 2 queens. And not only that, but 2 50,001 Tomahawk bombers are almost completed. Name, Tomahawk Bomber, Level 4, Description, the deconstruction of the Tomahawk bomber is similar to vertical Tomahawk, with superpower electromagnetic propulsion, a total length of 262 meters, a fuselage height of 733 meters, and a maximum interstellar load capacity of 80,000 kilograms, with 2 particle beam rapid-fire guns, 2,000 rounds per minute. Cost: 50,000 resource points. The price of these 2 bombers is much lower than that of Yuncheng, but in order for them to exert their combat effectiveness, a large number of torpedo bombs are also indispensable. Moreover, Su Ran was already building a large amount of ammunition and resources for the Yuncheng. 2 nuclear torpedoes costing 2,000 resource points are already in the process of being built. The army factory of the system is running crazily all the time, and all kinds of armaments are being built crazily every day, but only a few people know all this, whether it is the military, spore life, or insect swarm. All it is not clear that an interstellar class combat fleet has already seen its scale in the Xinjiang Special Zone. After finalizing the attack plan with the swarm, Su Ran was actually hesitant about one thing, that is whether to evacuate the survivors from Japan in advance. Although Dongpu, as an isolated island in the sea, has been almost conquered by insect swarms in the past few months, and there are not many survivors, but the arrival of Zhengsha Hoshino has made everyone realize that there are still people on that land. There are rebels and survivors, and this time the war is likely to affect them. However, this idea just passed through Su Ran's mind, and he didn't put it into practice in the end. Firstly, Hoshino Zhengsha was originally a 25-year-old, but she was a spy of the United States. Secondly, the Japanese people themselves knew the existence of flying saucers, and even regarded the thing as their ancestors. Under such circumstances, perhaps that it's just a crazy act of a few people, but the few people who can get in touch with these must be the high-level people in the current Japanese survivor system. With them, it is impossible to evacuate ordinary people. Instead, they will be reminded by Su Ran and prepare in advance. Su Ran also has his own selfishness. He wished that the insect swarm would be wiped out, but he didn't want his fleet to be hindered as well. Therefore, he ended up not sending a message. There was no news from his side, But good news came from Gully's side again and again. The top, shielding, leaders of the two countries in the north and south of the Corio Peninsula have sent thank you letters in the past few days. The content is very simple, and they are all expressing gratitude. I would like to thank you sincerely, and briefly describe the important role these 30 turbo laser cannons played on the Corio battlefield. It is said that they concentrated 10 laser cannons and irresistibly destroyed a bug nest located near the coastline, creating unprecedented results. The leaders, shielding, of North Korea, who have always been slightly radical, no longer advocate the suicide tactics of world nuclear peace. This not only made the leaders, shielding, of South Korea heave a sigh of relief, but even Su Ran felt a little relieved, breathed a sigh of relief. This meant that he didn't have to worry about the neighbor peninsula falling into nuclear winter and affecting him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 51 Dinner Party November 1st. The former Xinjiang Airport is now the fleet headquarters canteen today. This place is full of people, all of whom are members of the fleet, from the combat and logistics personnel on board the destroyer and the Apocalypse, to the pilots of the fleet attack fighters, to the logistics staff and other supporting personnel of the fleet. Today they are all gathered together, and Nuoda's cafeteria is already full. Moreover, not only that, representatives from Japan and Korea were also sitting here. The atmosphere in the lobby was very lively. Many people were whispering to each other, and some even joked boldly, while the core members of the fleet, such as the captains of the fleet, His Excellency the Commander, etc., were all sitting in front. Koyama Hinata, who was sitting on the Korean Dongying seat, looked around nervously, and finally Jungsha Hoshino, who approached quietly, glanced vigilantly at Minister Park, who was sitting on the opposite side with a happy face, and then lowered his head. The voice said, in Japanese, "What's the situation? Sir, is it possible that this is a trap? Has our identity and purpose been discovered?" Unlike Hinata Koyama, who was extremely nervous, Jungsha Hoshino was very happy, and seemed to have already integrated into the joyous atmosphere of the banquet. When Hinata Koyama was talking to her, she was even carefully watching the neon-colored lights above her head. "Don't find out what? Didn't you say it all? This is Your Excellency the Commander, who wants to entertain the entire fleet to reward everyone for their contributions and efforts to fleet construction. Is there any trap? We can participate because of the command Your Majesty's courtesy." At this time, the smile on her face was light, like a real girl. "So, little tiger, you can enjoy today. Since the end of the world, there are not many opportunities to participate in such celebrations." Koyama Hinata, in Dongying language, "Why are you so careless today? We need to communicate in our mother tongue." I said this might be a Hongman feast. Koyama Hinata talked very lively, but unfortunately, this time, Hoshino Jungsha turned his attention to the stage with great interest, as if he didn't hear or see it, because at this time, the Shuangshu host composed of Li Yilan and Tong Maya was already on the stage together in dresses. These two people were holding hands, wearing white gifts, stepping on high heels, walking arm in arm. Really quite amazing. Many people below even started to shout, "Captain Li, Captain Tong." Hundreds of years together, the corners of Tong Mayaoki's eyes twitched, just by hearing the voice. She knew that it was her subordinate who yelled the sound of a happy marriage for 100 years. She immediately planned to glance over and make the opponent's legs tremble, but before she could turn her head, she suddenly felt a pull. Hastily exerted force to hold Li Yilan, who was about to fall down suddenly, and the two of them didn't make a fool of themselves. If the two captains just fell on the stage like this, it would really be awe-inspiring. Tong Mayaoki, in a low voice, "What's going on?" Li Yilan's face turned red. "High heels, Tong Mayaoki was slightly stunned for a moment before realizing it, and immediately showed the domineering arrogance of a big sister, and said, "It's okay, I'll take you away." After this little episode, the two talents walked onto the stage arm in arm in a rather awkward posture, turned on the microphone, and started hosting. The scene was noisy, and the whispered conversation between the two just now was not heard by anyone. And so far, today's party has just begun. There are no guests or celebrities here, and there is basically no preparation or rehearsal beforehand, and many people rush into battle, and every table is filled with all kinds of food like water, which are rare things in the last days. The atmosphere at the scene was quite good today. Su Ran even opened the ban on alcohol, and everyone can drink as much as they want. Gradually, the performances on the stage became less noticeable. Instead, people eating and drinking each other became the main theme here. Some people lamented the changes of the times, some were grateful for the opportunity to join the fleet, and some remembered crying with others. Yuan Lichen, who was sitting next to Su Ran, looked at this scene, feeling a lot of emotion, and said, "Su Ran, is this the last carnival for everyone before the war?" "It's not the last carnival." Su Ran replied heavily, "because many people don't know that a great war is about to begin, and this war will not be the end of the fleet, but the beginning of our global domination." Yuan Lichen looked at Su Ran and laughed too. Just as he was about to say something, he immediately stopped talking because he saw Qiao Xiangjin walking over. This guy didn't come here voluntarily, but was dragged all the way by the drunk Hu. As soon as he came over, Lao Qiao was pinned beside Su Ran. Hu was obviously drunk, holding up the wine bottle in his hand. "Come on. Lao Qiao, Lao Su, oh, and Lao Yuan, the three of us have a drink." 1. Let me tell you, Hu used to be drunk after 1,000 cups. You won't get drunk after 1,000 cups. Qiao Xiangjin complained sharply with a cold face. "I think you can just pour it down if you have 1 cup." Hu obviously drank too much. He didn't hear Qiao Xiangjin's slight sarcasm at all. He put his arms around old Qiao's neck with a smile, and said, Come, drink. Su Ran could only smile wryly. Although Qiao Xiangjin's face was ugly, he surprisingly didn't refuse. What the former sniper was thinking, I'm afraid only he could know, and the party will come to an end when the end was coming to an end. Su Ran stepped up and began to speak. "Who am I? I don't think there's any need to introduce. Some of you followed me all the way from the Ice City. Some experienced the Battle of the Ice City, some experienced the Battle of the Sky Brood, and of course some joined in later. But this is not important. It is important. The thing is, we are sitting here now, all human beings. I can't guarantee that everyone will be able to survive in the future, because the war is far from over. This planet is not the end, and the swarm is not our only enemy. We're not alone, but aliens aren't friendly either. We are going to get stronger in this way. We can defend our homeland. I hope that you can work with me to create an interstellar era that belongs to the Earth. I also hope that today's banquet is not the last time for me." And Su Ran didn't say too much. He only said some words of encouragement, and moreover, he talked about a possible battle. He stood on the stage, looked at the sparkle in the eyes of everyone below, and suddenly realized that this is the future. But as soon as he turned his head, he saw a man who killed Matt's head shining brightly in the crowd. After a closer look, he recognized this man, and immediately glared. "Chu Xiangdong, your hair hasn't been cut yet, believe it or not. Kick you out of the fleet." Lin Yuandong, who was sitting next to Chu Xiangdong, immediately pushed Chu Xiangdong's head down, and said, don't get angry, I'll let him cut his head tomorrow. He has been trained as a captain." "Why, the preliminaries of the captain can be independent?" The corners of Su Ran's mouth twitched, but he still gave Lin Yuandong a face. "Old Lin, you also take care of your people. Next time I see him, I will to see that his head shape is the same as everyone else's." This is just a small episode. Although the fleet has clear requirements for hairstyles, Su Ran is not really that serious. After the banquet, Su Ran held a meeting for several captains, and returned soon. When I got to my room, it was already early morning. When he opened the door, Su Ran saw a beautiful voice standing in the corner of his room, and he said leisurely when he heard the door opening, "If we remember correctly, you are the one who wants to meet us secretly, right? Why did we wait for you?" As he said that, this person turned around, and it was Liu Tingting. Chapter 52. Udon in number 039, T have that qualification. Chapter 52. You don't have that qualification. November 6 at 1600 hours, the boundary between Xinjiang Special Zone and Liaoning Province. The swarm battleship Fugalo, which had been docked here for 3 months, suddenly started to move, and the huge Skywatcher attack group surrounding it also followed the swarm battleship. They are like a sharp sword, slowly sailing into the sky of Xinjiang Special Zone, headed by Fugalo at the forefront, followed by sky patrollers like dark clouds flowing in the sky, slowly crossing the sky of Xinjiang Special Zone sky. They move very slowly, even at the same speed as the cars on the ground. They seem to be demonstrating or waiting for something slight over and above the ground. Every 500 meters, there is a human military vehicle parked, and a commissioner is always monitoring the movements of this swarm fleet. And almost at the moment when Fugalo started to move, within the Xinjiang Special Zone, the door of the home of American Representative William, who was arranged in the government area of Xinjiang City, was suddenly kicked open. William was leisurely drinking coffee by the window, enjoying the comfort and peace of the only peaceful city in the world, but was kicked. He was startled by the sudden sight. It was the commando of the fleet, and they rushed all the way into William's room with the authorized operation certificate signed by Jin Seon of the military. The representative of the United States took the case angrily, and said angrily in that not-so-authentic Chinese, "What are you going to do? How dare you arrest me?" The captain of the fleet commando waved his ID and said directly, "I'm not arresting you, I'm arresting all of you. You have two choices, follow us obediently, or be executed on the spot by us." Arrogant, too arrogant. William was furious. "Do you know who I am? Do you know what the country behind me is? Do you know the consequences of offending my country? You are declaring war, you." Having said that, he couldn't continue because at this moment, the 5 commando soldiers in front of him raised their guns one after another and loaded them in unison. Amidst a loud noise, the muzzles of the 5 black holes pointed at William, as if they could shoot at any time. The fear of death spread up at this moment, engulfing William in an instant, making his body tremble a little, and he could no longer speak threatening words. The captain of the fleet commando looked at William coldly, as if he was looking at a clown. "I think you made a mistake, Mr. William. Your country intends to instigate senior officials of our fleet, and you have already declared war on our side. You have no idea what power you are fighting against." William paled, and at this moment, several members of the commando came in from outside. All of them were suppressing people. All of them were William's subordinates. At this moment, William's face finally became depressed, showing a look of completely giving up, struggling, and said, "I want the best treatment, and the scene is being staged in every corner of the new capital under the special approval of Jin Seon and Li Ji." The members of the fleet commando teamed up with the local military forces to arrest some suspected spies everywhere, and even the members of the Holy Inquisition were surrounded by layers. Members of the 2 commando teams entered from the front and back doors and directly controlled the overall situation. The priest in the Holy Inquisition is also named William, but he is much more sensible than the special envoy. Seeing this one scene, it fits very well. However, the members of the commando found an extremely secret room in the depths of the Church of the Holy Inquisition, which has a set of advanced communication equipment, but there is no one in the secret room. The priest William also expressed that he didn't know anything, and replied calmly, "I didn't know there was such a place here. This building didn't belong to us before." The members of the commando didn't believe his words at all. Under the shocked eyes of countless survivors, they all took them away and took them all to the military and fleet's detention places. But in the corner of the crowd, in an inconspicuous shadowy alley, there is a sneaky and shady white man looking at this side. His face is extremely ugly. After staring for a while, he panicked. He left in a hurry and quickly disappeared into the darkness and shadows in the new capital city. In the Spore Life control area, 3 transport planes full of Spore Life individual members slowly lifted off and flew to Suran's fleet headquarters at the same time. The doors of the fleet headquarters, Zhongsha Hoshino and the 3 representatives from Japan were knocked open. Li Rui led the team all the way into Hoshino Zhongsha's room, and said, "Miss Hoshino, I don't think I need to say more about my reason for coming, do I?" Hoshino Zhongsha seemed to have expected this scene long ago. She stood up gracefully from her seat, and said, "Is what is waiting for us a shooting?" "No." Li Rui said, "Your Excellency Commander invites you to go to the Yunchang." Hearing such words, Hoshino Zhongsha's calm face finally flashed a look of extremely unexpected surprise. Li Rui stepped back slightly and said, "Please, Miss Hoshino." At the same time, Yan Hulong came to Qiao Xiangjin's room aggressively, and said angrily, "Qiao Xiangjin, what are they doing? Why are they arresting people everywhere? Are you crazy? They want to arrest even our people." Qiao Xiangjin stood in front of the window with his back to Li Rui. "Although I didn't lock the door, you ran into my room and questioned me without even knocking on the door. Isn't that impolite?" "Polite? When is this, and you still tell me to be polite?" Yan Hulong's face turned ugly, and, "Don't forget, in terms of rank, my official title is much higher than yours. What should I do without you?" Yan Hulong's last word teach could not be uttered smoothly, because at this moment, Qiao Xiangjin, who had his back turned to him, turned his head like lightning, holding a stun gun in his hand, and shot it out immediately, emotionally and without any hesitation. Yan Hulong, who was defenseless, was hit in an instant. Electric current ran wildly all over his body, foaming at the mouth, and fell to the ground convulsively. Qiao Xiangjin exhaled at this moment, came to Yan Hulong's side, looked down at Yan Hulong's distorted expression condescendingly, and said, "I said, old Yan, you are from the capital, I will give you some face, that's polite, but don't make a fuss about your face. I have already quit the military system. Here, I am a member of the fleet, the captain of an apocalypse, and I am a general in the army. You and I are ranked by seniority, you not yet qualified for that, but why are you acting like this? Did I turn up the power of the stun gun too much? Aren't you an awakened person? Why are you so uncharged? Chapter 53, The Swarm Flying Over the Sky. Chapter 53, The Swarm Flying in the Sky. This is destined to be a frightening evening when Fugallo's shadow shrouded the sky above the new capital. The last rays of the setting sun were still struggling in the sky, rendering every strand of cloud into a fiery red color, but the shadow of the insect swarm has enveloped the earth at this moment. There are still nearly 2 months before the peacetime limit agreed between Suran and the swarm. No one thought that the swarm would appear in the sky above the new capital at this very moment, but soon people realized that they were just passing by the overwhelming sky patrollers, and the swarm battleship Fugallo followed the rules, slowly cruising from the sky above the new capital. And the howling of the sky patrollers shook the ground, but surprisingly, none of the monsters lowered their altitude, let alone an attack was launched on the new capital and the survivors in the new capital. The people who were running around in panic because of the appearance of the swarm slowly stopped. Although many people are still fleeing, vowing to everyone they know that the swarm will tear up the peace treaty and the new capital will be finished, but there are still quite a few people realize that the swarms didn't come for the new capital. People stopped and looked up. It is a rare situation that thousands of sky watchers guard Fugallo across the sky, and it is even rarer that humans have the opportunity to watch this scene up close without being attacked. It's incredible. They didn't attack us, that's right, the swarm did not attack us, and it seems that they have no intention of attacking us. Your Excellency Commander's treaty is still strong. They are equally afraid of our fleet. They're just passing by. Just ask, who on this planet can let the swarms pass by without attacking? Only Xinjiang City. Only Xinjiang Special Zone. Only our fleet. That's true, but what are they going to do when they suddenly act? The crowd was agitated, and many people were excited that they could survive in the new capital and accept the concealment of the fleet. Of course, some people were wondering, why did these swarms cross the Thunder Pool? And the answer to this question will soon appear. In fact, just as the Sky Surveyor swarm carried by Fugallo entered the sky above the new capital, the existing attack formation at the fleet headquarters, consisting of 2 Apocalypse and 12 destroyers, was slowly rising into the sky. The news was transmitted to the new capital 1 step earlier, but for some reason, it was not released publicly until this moment, and it was broadcast through the city's broadcasting system. Citizens of the new capital, please don't panic. The swarms are not here with malice, and the fleet is about to conduct a joint military operation with the swarms. It won't affect the new capital. It won't affect the new capital. A stone stirs up 1,000 waves. When this news came out, the entire city of new capital was in a state of turmoil, and it was even more surprising than the flying by of the swarm. What? The fleet is going to conduct a joint military operation with the swarm? Did I hear correctly? Is this what Your Excellency Commander means? Is this what Your Excellency Commander means? This is impossible. Why do you want to cooperate with the swarm? Why do we cooperate with the swarm? Haven't they killed enough humans? They are our enemies. This is treason. No. This is betrayal of humanity. The streets and alleys are full of people's shouts. Some people are cursing, but some people are really thinking about the meaning behind this matter. Of course, there were also people who'd always stand by Suran's side and speak at the same moment. Jin Seun was standing in his office in the government area. It was very quiet here. He left his desk at this moment and stood in front of the glass. At this very moment, the group of Fugallo and Skywatchers was passing by. Here, the earth is shrouded in shadow. Jin Seun looked up at the sky and remained silent, without any extra emotion in his eyes. Military Region Yukijin watched the swarm of insects fly across the sky in disbelief. Of course, he also heard the announcement on the radio. He murmured, "How is this possible?" Suran. At the same time, fleet headquarters, the airport, and the fleet are setting sail magnificently, and the roar echoes across Imano Junction. Hoshino had already been crushed on one of the Awakener. She was not bound, but free. Standing on the bridge, she felt the vibration of the battleship taking off, but her eyes fell on the captain standing in front of her. On a figure in front of the seat, said, "Captain Tong, long time no see, should I congratulate you on your promotion?" The one standing in front of the captain's seat was none other than Tong Myaokyu. The newly promoted captain of the Enlightened One was watching the fleet set sail at this time under the brilliance of the setting sun. The destroyers docked at the airport. The Enlightenment, our emerging from the optical invisibility state, The engine roars, bathed in the blood-colored glow of the setting sun, and slowly descending from the ground, rising in on the ground. Support crews look up to their expedition. Two working in tandem with this swarm was no secret in the fleet. Long after that dinner, Su Ran personally informed every captain in the fleet of this decision, carefully explained the reasons for the war, and after getting affirmative replies from the captains, these captains will inform their fleet members in this matter. Those who can agree with it will stay, and those who cannot agree with it will be banned, so as to ensure that this time the whole fleet will be united and there will be no mistakes. And Tong Mayaokyo also took advantage of the opportunity to become the captain of the Awakener, and she named her battleship Mandala. The flower language of Mandala is unpredictable death and love. Just as dangerous and beautiful as this mercenary turned Captain Fugallo, and the swarm crossed the new capital, then joined the fleet that set sail, then accelerated, and arrived in Dongpu within 3 hours, kicking off the prelude to this great battle. After going through the process for the last time in her heart, Tong Mayaokyo exhaled slightly, turned around, looked at the Dongying woman standing behind her, and showed a beautiful smile. Then, I thank you for your congratulations, Miss Hoshino. I don't think it's a coincidence. Nearly a month ago, I personally received you who came from Dongpu and welcomed you into the new capital, and now, after a month, I will personally send you back to your homeland. Hoshino Jungsha took a slight breath. She looked at the bright smile on Tong Mayaokyo's face that made her a little ashamed. Her body shook slightly, and immediately burst into that sweet smile, just like the first time she and Tong Mayaokyo meet. Then thank you for your hospitality, Captain Tong. Tong Mayaokyo nodded slightly, and replied, You're welcome, Miss Hoshino. Welcome to the Mandala. Chapter 54. Set sail. Qiao Xiangjin never thought that one day he would be able to keep pace with the swarm. The fleet and the swarm that took off from the former Xinjiang airport converged on the plain of the original Sky Brew battle, where the swarm and the fleet met. Looking over from the Awakener where Qiao Xiangjin was, he could see the huge bodies of those sky patrollers. It took Qiao Xiangjin a lot of effort to resist the thought of ordering to attack them, shook his head, and turned to look to the other side. Over there, another Apocalypse was passing slightly past a battleship Qiao Xiangjin was on. From this position, Qiao Xiangjin could just see the bright red paint on the side of the opponent's fuselage. Mandala, what an idle woman with such a lousy name. Qiao Xiangjin shook his head, but he couldn't help being a little depressed. Shouldn't he also give his enlightened one a loud and powerful name? Qiao Xiangjin took a deep breath and felt that she had become a little cautious, but at this time, he slowly raised his head, looked at the slowly advancing fleet displayed on the radar in front of him, frowned slightly, and was a little puzzled. This time, there are a total of 212 destroyers of the Awakener among them. The captains of the two Kaiming Zhe were themselves and Tong Mayaokyo. Of the remaining 12 destroyers, 6 of them are captained by the number AI named after the queen, and the remaining 6, except for the captain who was a participant in the previous battle of the Sky Brood, the others, the 5 ships and the fleet, are all new captains who were later promoted or recruited and screened within the fleet. So, what are Li Yilin and Lin Yuandong doing? At the same moment, Xinjiang and Lafa Mountain border in the Yuncheng, all the combat personnel and logistics personnel were in place. Su Ran strode into the bridge, followed by Li Yilin, Yuan Licheng and others. As they entered, the crew members in the bridge stood up one after another. Your Excellency Commander. Your Excellency Commander. Su Ran nodded, and immediately sat down on the captain's seat in the center of the bridge. Cloud City's bridge system and destroyers are different from Enlightenment. The Cloud City is fully sealed and deconstructed, so the bridge does not need to be located at the bow. Therefore, the bridge of the Yuncheng is located under the safest central main armor in the entire ship, and it is backed by the shield generator. It is the command center in the true sense. The 360-degree and no dead angle on the battleship's body is embedded in the armor plate, and the micro camera and sensory instruments will accurately present the external situation in the bridge in the holographic mode. The entire bridge can be fully immersed in the environment like watching a large-scale VR movie, as if you are no longer the driver of the battleship, but you are the battleship itself, and you can see the picture of the battleship in any direction. However, this holographic mode is more suitable for progress combat. In long-range and even interstellar-level combat, the conventional mode is the combat mode recommended by the main system of the Yuncheng. In this mode, the bridge is more like a conventional battle mode. In the headquarters, the external images and information will be displayed in the form of holographic screens and display screens, and its clarity and accuracy are thousands of times more accurate than the naked eye in such a conventional combat mode. Although less immersive, is undoubtedly more suitable for changeable long-distance combat because in that level of battle, Fleet members need not only to see clearly what is around them, but also to carry out strikes beyond visual range or intercept strikes beyond visual range. At this moment, the equipment in the bridge of the Yuncheng has been fully activated. On the radar of the Yuncheng, it is precisely showing the confluence of the insect swarm and the fleet and the direction in which they continue to move. In a miniature invisible space satellite launched by Suran recently is operating in Asia, and it is sending back a clear bird's eye view in space. As Suran sat down, Li Yilin also came from the side and handed over a tablet. The second fleet is already in place and has not been discovered by any creature. Suran nodded. Okay, get through their connection. The second fleet that Li Yilin mentioned was a fleet consisting of 2 heavy bombers and 1 frigate. These 3 battleships cost Suran 160,000 resource points, and they are giant monsters under the 4th level manufacturing list. Except for the Yuncheng, long before a rendezvous with the swarm, Suran had already deployed this fleet in the Pacific Ocean. Although it was still more than 300 nautical miles away from Kyushu Island, the target of this battle, with the performance of those 3 warships, they arrived at the battlefield just for an instant. As for the commander-in-chief of that fleet, at this time, at the corner of the bridge, a communication split screen lit up, and the face that appeared on it, if not Lin Yuandong, who else? Lin Yuandong looked serious at this time, and as soon as the communication was connected, he said seriously, "Report to your excellency, Commander. The second fleet is ready to attack at any time." Suran squinted at him and said, "I told you how important this battle is." Lin Yuandong nodded. "I understand. Although my 2 courses of fleet command and military science have been struggling in the training system to pass the line, but I understand that you let me get to this position, not only because I am in the training system achievements." Suran smiled and said, "Just understand, Lin Yuandong is a smart man." Without Suran saying much, he can figure out why he is leading a fleet independently, and this clarity is why Suran used him. However, this guy's problem is also obvious. Although he has a serious face, Suran knows without thinking about it. The place that he can't see on Lin Yuandong's side must be smoky, and he is called a brother. Not only that, Lin Yuandong also has a fault he's always willing to analyze for himself. After thinking about it, Suran still reminded, "Well, old Lin, don't analyze blindly, and follow orders." Lin Yuandong's expression suddenly looked a little embarrassed, and he nodded after a while. No, Commander, since the last analysis was wrong, I am now more rational. Besides, my people, don't worry, the fleet is our home. Lao Qiao and Xiao Tong are our brothers and sisters. When it is time to risk our lives, my brothers and I will never be ambiguous." Suran's scalp felt a little numb when he heard this more rational sentence, but he didn't say anything, and nodded silently. Li Yilin glanced at Lin Yuandong, smiled, then looked at Suran and said, "So, is our Yuncheng going to take off?" "No." Suran sat down in his seat and said, "Don't forget, we are star warships. From here we can reach Kyushu Island in Japan." So, Li Yilin also understood. She said, "So, the moment we take off is the moment we fire." Chapter 55. 9 States Island. November 6, 18 o'clock. Dongying's time is an hour faster than China's. At this moment, the mixed troops of the swarm and fleet set off from the new capital at 4 p.m., and arrived at the outer sea of Chengdu City, Kyushu Island at 18 p.m., but at this time, it was already 19 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Time. The sky has completely darkened, but looking out from the inside of the bridge, he couldn't see the dark sky because the sky has been covered by thick clouds. It was as if someone had wantonly poured a ball of ink into the night, and before the ink dried up, it flowed along the night, outlining a moving and hideous image. But that thick cloud is not spread ink, that's the swarm. It is the array of howlers under the protection of the migratory locust swarm on the Mandala. Li Hexun reported to his captain, "It is a battle group composed of locust swarms and howlers. The number of locusts is huge, and the data is constantly beating, about 30,000, and they are guarding the center. There were 137 whalers." Tong Maya Okyu is staring at you. Inkwang lights were shining one after another on the body of the howler, attacking Chen Duchen diagonally below. The flickering blue light, like lightning bolts, flickered among the dense clouds formed by migratory locusts, briefly and brilliantly illuminating the sky from a distance of nearly 100 nautical miles. Tong Maya Okyu could see the flames rising from the land, and the encirclement and suppression of the insect swarm was not limited to the sky. At this moment, the area off the coast of Kyushu Island was also turbulent under the sky covered in darkness and the thunder light flickering. The ocean is also choppy. From Tong Maya Okyu's position, one can see that there is a giant creature like a mythical dragon winding under the ocean. It moved, setting off a huge wave like a tsunami, and in the deep sea parallel to the fleet, there was another insect nest similar in size to the Ice City's insect nest floating on the water surface. Above this insect nest, clinging densely packed monsters like the legendary siren deep diver and a small number of black beetles, like maggots clinging to a rotten shell, can only be briefly reflected when the sky is shining with plasma light. Their squirming presents as shocking as the sound of the waves is some kind of strange howling that crazily washes away before the sea and sky. It was like the breathing of some kind of terrifying existence hidden under the sea, and it was also like the howling of tens of thousands of bugs. The sky, the ground, and the ocean are full of ferocious monsters. The blue flash that illuminates the world in the gap between the surging waves, not only fails to bring any comfort to people, but illuminates those horrifying creatures and makes people feel uncomfortable, more fearful. The end of the world. Seeing this scene, Tong Maoki was also a little terrified under such an offensive. The coast of Chengdu City and Kyushu Island is like a fragile glass product, as if it will shatter at any time, and the fleet is still advancing. In fact, at the speed of the fleet, it would take at most an hour to arrive here from the new capital, but it was delayed for such a long time because of the barrel effect of the insect swarm, although Fugalo also has a terrifying speed. The Skywatcher is a living creature after all, and cannot reach that level. This is also the reason why during the Skybrood War, the Skywatcher combat group headed by Fugalo was the only one who came to the northeast plain first with a swarm battleship from Fugalo. Tong Maoki said in a deep voice, "Release our unmanned detector, the radar scan is approaching 500 nautical miles. Yes." Li Huxun took the order and left at the same time. The same order was performed on almost every warship in the fleet. Su Ran, who was far away in the new capital, sat on the bridge and watched this scene, and couldn't help but let out more breath. Such a long period of training was not in vain. The immersive training cabin produced by the system is 10-1 for the outside world, more than 3 months, but it is equivalent to 9 months of training for Tong Maoki and others, and finally achieved considerable results. Su Ran couldn't help but feel a burst of relief and peace of mind in his heart when the captains of the warships sent back the picture of orderly arranging the battle orders after 3 months. Su Ran can say that his fleet has no obvious shortcomings from top to bottom. Everyone has grown up. Yuan Licheng seemed to think about it with Su Ran, smiled slightly, and said, "Su Ran, you don't have to worry. I think we will win today's battle." "I hope so." Su Ran smiled and confirmed the feedback from all parties. There is no abnormality in the surrounding sea area. There is nothing unusual about the sky. There is no abnormality in the swarm. Donggying, Kyushu Island. The fleet is flying over the rough sea, infinitely approaching the coastline. The Queen V and the Fugalo battle group are slowly lowering their altitude according to the agreement with the Zerg swarm. Su Ran's fleet will not be the first to attack, but the Zerg swarm will take the lead, and the Queen V will be the first wave of probing. Su Ran will send an unmanned deep diving device, go to the bottom of the sea, to explore the flying saucer that is shown in the data and located in the depths of the sea near Chengducheng. Kyushu Island. Everything is going to plan. The figure of Queen V is gradually disappearing from the shadow of the sky surveyor, but it is steadily descending, and with the advance of the fleet, the distance to Kyushu Island was shortened, and the situation in the area around Chen capital finally appeared in everyone's eyes. The sky is falling apart. This is the first feeling that everyone sees this land. The city has long since ceased to exist, and the coastline and cliffs no longer have clear boundaries. Long before the fleet arrived, the insect swarm had already started a full-scale bombardment, and the area around Chengdu City was directly bombarded. Mountains collapsed, land sank, and cities were destroyed in earthquakes. Even the earth is shattered. How can the city be spared? The seawater flooded back, and on the broken ground, the swarms of insects marched forward on the burning flames, a scene of destruction. After tonight, this city, this land will be swallowed up by the sea, and it will no longer be suitable for human survival. And at the far end of the field of vision, it seems that a slight spark can still be seen. It seemed that the Chengducheng fighters who were still breathing were firing tenaciously while retreating. Zhengxia Hoshino watched this scene through the porthole of the battleship, and she was stunned for a long time without saying a word. When she turned her head and looked at her 2 colleagues from Japan, she found that they also had the same dull expression. After a while, Zhengxia Hoshino whispered, "Is this really what we want?" But Tong Maoki had no time to take care of the 2 Donggying people at this time, and a series of orders came from her: follow up the Queen 5, follow up the progress of the deep submersible, and make sure to send back the screen in real time. Also, immediately deploy computer resources to analyze the land damage here. It's the new year. I hope all the pirates can come back to watch the genuine version. Thank you. Chapter 56. Before the battle November 6 at 1813 in the evening, the first snow of the year fell in Kyoto. It took several hours for the first important person to grasp the joint dynamics of the swarm, and the fleet Tsuran's satellite launched into the sky and built a barrier for his own fleet. Even if the fleet itself did not enter the state of full stealth and sail silently, it would be difficult for the military to quickly determine their position on the Earth. However, regarding the turmoil in the new capital, the top officials had little to say after he got the news. He just glanced at the chief of the Intelligence and Reconnaissance Department, then put down the frontline information and the slightly blurred real-time feedback screen, let out a long breath, stood up, came to the window, staring at the snowy night outside. This was the first snowfall in Kyoto. It was just light snow. The snow was not heavy, but it was very dense. Looking out from the office where the first official was located, the whole city seemed to be shrouded in white flying flowers. Suddenly, like a spring breeze overnight, thousands of trees and pear trees bloom. For some reason, he suddenly read such a well-known old poem. The director of the Intelligence Department at the back was a little trembling. Although the joint battle plan between the fleet and the swarm had arrived in Kyoto a few days ago, and many people knew nothing about it, as the director of the Intelligence Department, he of course it is clear, but today, the fleet and the Fugalo formation of the swarm joined together to attack Donpu. Of course, he was shocked to the extreme. If he hadn't lived to be more than 50 years old, he would have just become a civil servant in his 20s. He should have panicked completely when he heard the news, but now he still seemed a little panicked, maybe because the news was too shocking, or maybe because the attitude of the first official was not clear enough, especially after such a sentence without beginning and end. Suddenly, like a spring breeze overnight, the first person probably wanted me to say something to him. After making the above judgment, the high-ranking director hesitated and said, "This is Bai Zhuge sending Judge Wu returns to Beijing." Unexpectedly, before he finished speaking, he heard the first important official say a little tiredly, "Go down." The director of the Intelligence Department nodded suspiciously, walked back, and exited the door, and the number one official was still standing in front of the window, looking at the melodiously falling snow outside, silent for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. Same moment, the coastline outside the city of Chengdu in Dongying Queen 5 is descending, and it is still 1,200 meters above sea level, and the speed continues to slow down. Our fleet has entered the designated combat area and is now on standby. The communication with the headquarters is good, and the communication with other warships in the fleet has been disturbed to a certain extent. The magnetic field disturbance caused by the plasma cannon used by the swarm is currently having a greater impact on the internal communication of our fleet. Now continue to report on the situation of Queen 5. Queen 5 is still descending, and it is still 1,000 meters above sea level, and there are still 200 meters to reach the designated position. The first round of attacks by the Skywatchers is about to begin. One after another of information, like raindrops, fell into the ears of Qiao Xiangjin, who is on the bridge captain's seat. His eyes were fixed, and he was looking at the situation below the fleet through the holographic presentation. The sea is choppy, and those bugs are like sea monsters crawling out of the deep sea, churning in the rough waves, but they seem to be in such an extreme environment, as if walking on flat ground. At this moment, the Empress V was completely invisible to the naked eye, and the group of Skywatchers with Fugalo as the core was spreading out at a position 5,000 meters below the fleet and 2,500 meters above the Empress, like a piece of land. The Iron Curtain stretched over the ocean, and when looking down from the sky, all that could be seen was the ferocious posture of this terrifying and huge figure as they spread out, from the new capital to here. The Zerg battleship Fugalo, which had been guarded by them, finally showed its figure again. The Zerg battleship, shaped like a twisted lightning, was higher than the Skywatcher array. Directly above them, the hull was cold, but there were no weapons to fire. Qiao Xiangjin looked at this scene, and after confirming the data through computer analysis, he immediately said to the headquarters represented by Su Ran, "Fujialuo has no intention of firing. I suggest that the entire fleet be vigilant." Su Ran immediately gave a positive answer. In midair, led by the two Enlightenment ships, the remaining 11 destroyers began to disperse slowly, enclosing the sea area in a huge semicircle, and the front of the fleet was the collapsed Kyushu Island, the first line of the capital city. The two awakeners are located at 30 degrees and 150 degrees of this semicircle, respectively, and their hulls are closer to the front, which has the meaning of sweeping the formation. The Nightingale aircraft with strong endurance flying along with the fleet also dispersed, and a large number of drones were released from the destroyer and the Apocalypse. Because this is a long-distance combat at the Legion level, the fleet does not carry many fighter jets. The Nightingale aircraft and the attack drones total only 150 aircraft. Among the huge battleships and huge sky patrollers, they are like flying seagulls. If you look at them from a long distance, you will even ignore the figures of these fighter jets. Only the huge embedded lighting on the destroyer and the Apocalypse, the flashes of the equipment illuminate the occasional fleet of fighter jets. However, the protagonists on the battlefield at this moment are not fighter jets or fleets, but swarms in this joint operation. Su-Ran and the swarm had already reached an agreement through the Spore Life. The swarm is the main attack, and the fleet is auxiliary. Therefore, the Sky Surveyor will launch the first round of attacks at this moment. The bodies of those sky patrollers are gradually lit up with blue light flashing brightly from the inside of their bodies, making them look like thunder gods on the sea in the dark night, the entire sea and sky. Even the fleet was reflected in a faint blue. Then at the next moment, the Sky Witcher's bombardment burst out. Countless plasma balls passed by the destroyer Queen V, which was sinking and floating at a low altitude, and dived into the turbulent sea one by one, shining brightly under the sea. If you are very close at this time, you can even see floating corpses, gravel and dead fish among the waves, as well as islands in continental plates that have almost completely collapsed. But the Sky Surveyor blocked this scene, which only made the land simulation and recovery process of the mandala advance by 13%. At this time, the analysis process of the land damage on the mandala has reached 67%. Chapter 57 Traps. Chapter 57, Trap. The computer's analysis process is slow. Strong electromagnetic interference, sky surveyors, and a large number of insect swarms on land and the ocean all make data collection very slow, and the reconnaissance drones sent out can only advance slowly. Of course, when the deep submersible of Queen V enters the ocean, it will be able to assist in the analysis of land damage. At this moment, there was a roar in the ocean. It's not so much a roar as a muffled sound. It seems that tens of thousands of people beat the drums under the ocean, and the roar soared into the sky. But it was the waves that really soared into the sky. The destroyer Queen V, which was 800 meters above sea level, was once touched by surging waves, and the whole world trembled. The land in the distance is cracking inch by inch, like a biscuit, gradually shattered under the beating of foreign objects, and gradually eroded and swallowed by the waves. Dongying Island is located between the Eurasian continental plate and the Philippine plate. Both plates are very active, and Dongying Island is a famous earthquake-prone area. Before the end of the world, Dongying even calculated when its own island will be. It's a pity that it may not be the island that perishes first. Today's continuous bombardment is hastening the demise of the island nation. That tsunami that just surged has been scattered by the heavy bombardment, and there are terrifying earthquakes everywhere under the ocean and above the sea. The land sinking in the Chengdu city area of Kyushu Island is becoming more and more rapid. The ground and unfathomable gullies were opened as if smashed by a giant hammer, and sea water poured in from the cracked land. Not only are human beings dying in patches, but even those bugs were killed and injured countless times in the violent man-made natural disasters. With the end of the Sky Surveyor attack, Queen V began to lower the deep submersible in the sky. People on the two Apocalypse and many destroyers watched this scene with bated breath, and Su-Ran, who was far away in the Xinjiang Special Zone, was quietly watching this scene in the Yuncheng, waiting for the deep submersible into the sea at the same time. The drone is transmitting the situation of Kyushu Island captured by aerial photography back to the fleet in more than 20 minutes. The farthest high-speed reconnaissance drone had already passed Chenducheng, sailing nearly half of Kyushu Island. Chenducheng has almost perished, but it can be seen that at the farthest point of Chenducheng, on a piece of unbroken ground, there is an altar, and it seems that some kind of sacrificial activity is being held. That's a lot of Japanese men and women, wearing kimonos. They put down their weapons, but chose to dance to the sky in this almost doomsday scene, singing weird and absurd sacrificial songs in the dark. The person at the front was even bathed in flames. Every time he took a step, a thread of fire spread along his feet, sinking into the deepest part of the dark world. He is the last light in the last days. The man was hunchbacked, but because he was bathed in flames, he looked extremely powerful, and he couldn't even see his face clearly. But in the fleet, there are still people who are knowledgeable and change their colors. This awakened person's dark energy perception has reached at least level 10. He is a top-level powerhouse, and Japan has such a character, but in the mandala. Junksha Hoshino looked at this figure with complicated eyes. However, the attention of the Japanese special envoy was quickly attracted by another picture. This crazy end-time sacrifice is just one of the many pictures sent back, and more pictures come from various places in Kyushu Island. Those survivors gather, the first-tier cities that resist the swarm. Those branches are on the island of Kyushu, and they are still resisting the swarm. The last fire of Japan that survives tenaciously. Those are the Dongying people who are hiding everywhere under the pursuit of the insect swarm. Those are the Japanese people who are following the Japanese self-defense forces in a bloody battle against the insects. Those are the Japanese people who are also eager to defend their homeland. Those are the people who have been fleeing with almost no hope. But the Dongying people who are still trying to live, in the city, in the mountains and forests, one after another figures are coming out of their hiding places. Either they caught a glimpse of the shock in the direction of Chendechen from a distance, or because they felt this unusual earthquake, or they encountered a disaster coming. A woman was holding a child, looking at the faint blue flash in the far sky, and realized something. Her face was full of shock. There are also some people who look around in a daze, feeling the shock on the ground but don't know what happened. Some people, walking in the wilderness with their own team, felt everyone's uneasiness, stopped and said loudly, in Dongying language, "Don't be afraid, this may be an earthquake. Please believe that as long as we don't give up hope, we will be able to defeat the swarm." In this tiny place, some people are struggling, and some people are living in an ordinary way. They may have been just ordinary people before, but now, they are all surviving in their own way. Looking at this scene, Jungsha Hoshino was slightly stunned. Tongmaya Okyu also fell silent, and after a while, asked, "Miss Hoshino, how many survivors are there on Kyushu Island?" This question stopped Hoshino Jungsha after a long time. Hoshino Jungsha said, 200,000? The last time we could count, our last count was 200,000, and that was more than 3 months ago. Tongmaya Okyu nodded and said, "You don't have to worry too much. It is impossible for a bombardment of this scale to affect the entire Kyushu Island. A warning was issued to this place a few days ago. The Dongying people in Chendechen still did not leave here after all. What do you believe in?" This sentence made Hoshino Jungsha stunned at this very moment. The deep submersible sent by Queen Number 5 was passing through the messy sea, using its shield to knock away floating corpses and rubble, and arrived at the designated location. The seawater is very turbid and the disturbance is serious. The images and radar data sent back for the first time did not find the flying saucer. However, the data sent back from the second in-depth exploration half a week later still did not show the figure of the flying saucer-shaped alien spacecraft. "Your Excellency, have you seen it?" Qiao Xiangjin reported the situation immediately. But the communication was cut off at this moment. Report. "There's strong electromagnetic interference." Report. "A high energy level transition has been detected, and the intensity is rapidly increasing. Tracking the position, at this moment." Qiao Xiangjin suddenly felt a great deal of uneasiness at the same time. The same energy level transition monitoring report appeared on the bridge of the Mandala. "The location has been determined. It is located 13,000 meters above my fleet. The energy level has already surpassed 7 times that of the destroyers of my fleet, but, however, both radar and fleet satellites show that there is nothing there. Wheel electronic systems are being severely disrupted." At the same time, the land damage modeling of the deteriorate was finally completed. The modeling has been completed. Although the land around Chengdu City suffered serious external damage, it disintegrated from the inside out. Something huge broke away from the bottom layer. The communication with the commander-in-chief has been completely interrupted, but various information is flying in like raindrops. Tongmai Okyu's face changes suddenly. "This is a trap. Order the entire fleet to evade urgently." Our ship immediately left the current array obliquely, and activated number 007 rule the sailing route. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 58 Praying Mantis Catching Cicadas. Above the raging tide, in the midair covered by black clouds, the fleet group in the direction of Kyushu Island scattered in a semicircle, and sirens are sounding in every battleship, and huge energy is gathering from the empty place in the sky. That is some kind of weapon that is gathering energy in the sky, and the magnificent blow is ready to go. Qiao Xiangjin's enlightenment roared into the air with a group of missile groups, dragging the dazzling and shining missiles to pull out shocking trajectories in midair, piercing the sky like lightning bolts across the sky, heading towards the location with abnormal energy. Run away, but they were all intercepted in midair. The swarm of migratory locusts in the sky took the initiative to meet them and block this group of missiles with their flesh and blood. As a result, the sky is full of crimson and grand fireworks everywhere back and forth. This is just a change of a few seconds. Everyone has realized that the swarm has changed its mind. They strike back at the fleet, and the uneasiness in Tong Myaoku's heart was skyrocketing. She took the helm with her own hands and forcibly moved the battleship sideways inch by inch, making a displacement that completely did not comply with the operating regulations and the ship's driving specifications. Also at this moment, a ray of light lit up in the extremely high distance of the sky. It is like the sunlight that penetrates the clouds and falls on the earth after the rain, passes through the humid and warm air, leaving a brilliant beam of light in the field of vision. However, it was not the warm and peaceful sun after the rain that was a blow. A particle beam ray carrying terrifying energy erupts from a high mouth nearly 20,000 meters above the ground, from under a heavy and huge muzzle and a refracting prism. Like a huge group of rays and matter rushing out from the two poles of a star. When a supernova explodes, the highlight generated by the high heat illuminated the entire desolate sky and earth and the sea outside Chengdu City, and even the blue light flickering on the bodies of the sky patrolling battle group that was continuing to attack was eclipsed. Tong Myaoku's crazy self-rescue has achieved results. This ray of light brushed past a mandala, and the battleship's shield burned out under the violent friction and reaction. The numbers on the display seemed to jump suddenly. In less than half a second, the shield value had returned to zero. The high temperature left a scorching mark on the battleship of the Enlightenment. The cold outer armor. As a result, there is a hot bright red ditch on the ground. This particle beam strike roared past a mandala, piercing through the extended thrusters and part of the engine modules at the end of the battleship, running through the sky with unabated momentum, and hitting a destroyer behind. The destroyer failed to dodge successfully, flashed out in an instant, was pierced by the ray, and exploded in mid-air like popcorn. The monstrous shock waves and air waves were only 5 years later than the glorious explosion scene. Sweeping the battlefield in seconds, the destroyer in the sky shook violently. The Awakener, where Qiao's engine was located, raised its altitude urgently, and its engine and propeller were completely damaged. The mandala, whose shield was offline, swayed like a rootless duckweed in the shock. The swarm of migratory locusts howled and evaded, and were swept down from the sky by the blade-like shock wave and the aftermath of the air wave. On the rough sea level, it was like being blown by a god. Starting from the center of the explosion, the waves was forcefully smoothed. The coastline of Chengdu City not far away was hit again, and the ground land that had already begun to disintegrate became faster and faster. It seemed that many earthquakes and collapses had occurred underground. The seawater washed out by smoothing spread all the way to this troubled continent, and even engulfed the already fragmented Chengdu City. The rift, the seawater poured back. Many people have already started fleeing in panic, but the figure bathed in flames still dances in this apocalyptic scene, singing the strange songs of Japan. The sky is falling apart. The end of the world in the sky. The air waves were still washing away layer by layer, and the particle beam strike began to attenuate after hitting the destroyer, and then galloped an extremely long distance in the sky before sinking into the sea ring. Immediately afterwards, waves of tsunamis emerged, riding the wind and breaking through the waves, and continued to make waves under the Pacific Ocean. The formation of the Skywatchers has also been overwhelmed, but they completed their attack at the last moment, and the Queen 5 located directly below them received a devastating blow, turning into a blazing fireball and falling below the surface of the sea. Communication with the submersible is lost forever. Those huge sky surveyors are also like pieces of paper in the impact. Only few Gallo is still floating in the sky, like a mountain that will never shake. The effect of this blow was beyond everyone's imagination. Qiao Xianjin yelled anxiously in the channel, "It's a city-killing cannon. The entire fleet is careful. The entire fleet is careful." The unknown extraterrestrial flying saucer under the Kyushu Island in Japan has left Kyushu Island, and now it is 10,000 meters above our heads. 3,000 meters in the sky, and at the same time Xinjiang Special Zone, Lhasa Mountain. The contact with the forward fleet has not yet been restored, but the satellites launched by Suran in space still send back information. Although the satellite has also been seriously interfered, and the returned images have been interrupted, the returned data is enough to tell everyone what happened in the field. Yuan Lichen was surprised and said, "That flying saucer cooperated with the swarm. Is that the city-killing cannon? Damn it, I should have thought of it long ago." "No. I didn't expect that either. The swarms always focus on annihilation." Suran shook her head, and immediately said, "Our ship set sail, 23,000 meters into the air, locked onto the enemy ship above Kyushu Island, and the main guns were ready to fire." Yes, the order was transmitted in an instant, led by Suran, and the Yuncheng, which was silent in the Lhasa Mountain in the Xinjiang Special Zone, shook the trees, insects and birds all over the mountain with a huge roar, like a prehistoric monster awakened, inch by inch. Slowly lifted into the sky above the ground, The optical invisibility on it gradually disappeared, and the huge ship hull was hideous above the mountain forest at the same moment. The battleship's main guns were beginning to accumulate energy, however, with the positions of Xinjiang Province and Kyushu Island. Their positions need to be higher to be able to hit Kyushu Island from here, but Su Ran immediately issued an order. Lin Yuandong, your fleet is moving forward silently and starting to approach the battlefield. But don't fire immediately. The flying saucer has shot, and the swarm's intentions have been exposed, and they must have more powerful forces dormant in the Kyushu Island area. But once you approach, the communication will be interrupted for a short time, and you can act freely at that time. Lin Yuandong responded immediately. Don't worry, I will bring all of our fleet back to the new capital. Su Ran took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, the swarm's intentions have been exposed. They want to eat our fleet in one bite. But they underestimated our strength and our preparation. They don't have the jaws to eat us today. We're going to break a mouthful of their teeth. Chapter 59. Who is the Oriole? The front line of the sea off Kyushu Island. The moment the attack was extinguished, there was an almost deathly silence in the fleet. The horror of this blow was beyond imagination. Looking at this turbulent world, Qiao Xiangjin was terrified. What would happen if this cannon hit his awakener? If it falls on Kyushu Island, half of this giant island will be directly sunk. On the mandala, Tong Mayaoki was sitting on the captain's seat, covered in cold sweat. The moment she passed the blow, she almost thought she was going to die. That was the real feeling of having a brush with death. If this cannon hits, the whole ship will perish. There is no doubt that it will die. That was the flying saucer under Kyushu Island, and the swarm actually cooperated with it. Tong Mayaoki's teeth were chattering uncontrollably, but she still gave the order in a deep voice. Immediately overhaul the battleship, and put all weapons into battle. There was silence on the bridge, and most people were stunned in place, as if there was still a frightening flash in their pupils. Unable to recover from the wandering between life and death, the first sky patroller has even rushed towards the battleship. They are different from humans. They are completely controlled by the superior unit, and immediately launched an attack on the fleet. Tong Mayaoki said angrily, "Can't you hear me? You weren't killed by the main gun of the enemy ship. Do you want to fight to death under the hands of the Sky Patrol without any resistance?" The angry shout woke up many people, and people began to act. Tong Mayaoki took a deep breath. She knew that this was not the time to be shocked and discouraged. The cooperation between the swarm and the flying saucers under Kyushu Island exceeded their expectations, but the fleet was not unprepared. The Cloud City, like the second fleet, can catch the swarm by surprise as long as you hold on now, as long as you don't get shot down. Tong Mayaoki gritted her teeth, and at this moment, Hoshino Junksha, who was standing behind, was leaning against the side of the wall, and his face was a little ugly. Koyama Hyuga was better than her. He looked at the turbulent world through the porthole, and hissed, in Japanese, "What would happen if this gun fell on our land?" This sentence made Hoshino Junksha's body tremble slightly, and instinctively looked down at the Chengdu city, which had almost completely sunk, and didn't say a word for a long time. The flying saucer represented Dongpu. So why did they fight with Chuang? Group standing together, seeing that no one spoke, Jinjing Rongchuan replied in a trembling voice after a long while, in Dongying language, "Our country is over." At the same moment, the launch of the new capital city, the Yuncheng, was transmitted to the senior management of the new capital city almost immediately, causing an uproar in the government district. Jin Xian heard the news in his office and did not speak for a long time in the military headquarters. Li Ji, He and Yan Hulong are all here, and a large number of officers and advisors come and go, but at this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the screen not far away above is the giant ship straddling the sky above Mount Rafa. The shadow it cast covers the entire mountain range. Still in the air, Yan Hulong's expression was extremely ugly. He could even be said to be furious. He said angrily, "Did you see that? Su Ran already has a warship of this level, and he didn't tell us. Li Ji, I want to report to the first important person. Let me tell you. You can't even keep your jobs. You have to be responsible for this matter." But it's a pity that Li Ji just stared at the giant ship in a daze at this time, and didn't have any intention of answering him. Seeing this, Yan Hulong angrily said to his colleague He Hang, "Old He, it's already in this situation. Don't you plan to say something?" However, it was only at this moment that Yan Hulong noticed that He Hang's expression was completely dull, as if he didn't hear Yan Hulong's words at all. He Hang slumped on the seat behind him. After a long time, he hoarse and said in that unbelievable voice, "It's over. It's over." Yan Hulong was furious. "Why is it over?" He Hang said in a voice almost lamenting. "With such a warship, Which country on this planet can match it? For us, that is the Invincible Fleet. The fleet is trapped among the swarm. Above the head is a battle formation composed of a huge number of locust swarms and howlers. Under the feet is the array of sky patrollers. After the shock wave of frantic cleansing, the two parties were completely strangled together in the sky. There are dazzling flashes and thunderous roars everywhere. Fighter planes, migratory locusts, and sky patrollers are everywhere. Destroyer ships were wrapped circle by swarms of bugs several times larger than themselves, and only the occasional flashes of explosions could catch a glimpse of the crumbling battleships inside. The Mondolo was struggling to balance its hull. Its propellers and engines were damaged to a certain extent, and even the fuel tank had gaps in the Mondola. There are scarlet lights flashing everywhere. The emergency repair personnel and the engineering robot had already arrived at the damaged location in the first place, but one of the emergency repair personnel was thrown out in a shock, and even the engineering robot was crumbling in the shock, as if it would be thrown miserably from a fixed state at any time. Go out and become an inconspicuous embellishment in the chaotic sky. However, Datira is also fully firing. Even if the shield system is completely offline, the powerful defense system it carries will forcefully wipe out sky patrollers and locusts who dare to approach it in the near air, forming an unrivaled defense system. The defensive network bought precious time for the adjustment of the Mondola in the other direction. Qiao Xiangzhen's Apocalypse wanted to intercept it sideways at the first time, but they were firmly held back. Fugalo lifted off from below, and a series of icy plasma cannons ejected from the twisted lightning-shaped hull, and the black hole's muzzle danced and flashed, bombarding Fugalo across the air. Fugalo's firepower was far higher than Qiao Xiangzhen's Awakener. As soon as the Zerg warship opened fire, Qiao Xiangzhen's Awakener was at a disadvantage. Coupled with the pursuit and interception of the sky patrollers, he could only order the battleship to retreat again and again, and at this very moment, from the depths of the Pacific Ocean, there are waves of plasma cannon bombardment roaring, shooting through the battlefield. According to the severely disturbed radar system, in the depths of the Pacific Ocean 500 kilometers away, a huge object is rapidly approaching the battlefield, and the distance is still getting closer. The blow comes from this sudden huge objects under the surface of the sea. That huge monster like a dragon is tossing the river, as if waiting for an opportunity to move at any time. But at this very moment, in the bridge of the Mondola, the siren resounded terribly again. Chapter 60. Please save us. The siren sounded. The crew responsible for monitoring several positions including radar and defense systems gave feedback immediately. Captain, at an altitude of 12,000 meters, a large-scale energy level transition has been detected. Captain, the energy concentration situation and incremental strength are exactly the same as before. It can be confirmed that it is the unknown flying saucer. It has descended to a height of about 300 meters and moved about 560 meters. According to computer calculations, it is at an oblique angle to our ship, and it is attacking our ship. Best location. The more the crew member spoke, his voice became lower, but the bridge was completely silent. With the voices there was a deathly silence, so no matter how soft the crew member's voice was, it was clearly heard by everyone. Tongmaya Okiu bit her trembling lips, pressed hard on the armrest of the captain's seat, and said, "Can you confirm its location?" "No. Its coordinates are changing all the time. It is always in a state of full stealth, and our fire control system has been severely jammed. From this position, we can't lock it at all." Passively beaten, this thought flashed through Tongmaya Okyu's mind. The huge panic was like an invisible hand, grabbing her hard in an instant, making it difficult for her to breathe. She is not afraid of death, never was, but now, she is the captain of the First Fleet. She looks forward to the changes of the fleet every day, and is even more responsible for the lives of her First Fleet. So now she is terribly afraid of death. But Tongmaya Okyu knew that she must not fall into fear. Fear is the beginning of real death. This blow can be dodged. This kind of battle is not a naval battle on Earth, where the two fleets fight each other. This is a fleet battle. Although it is still inside the planet, the two warring parties are completely different races and fleets. I don't know what powerful weapons and ships they have, and they don't know what I have. Run, we can run. Tongmaya Okyu immediately issued an order. Have you recorded the peak parameters of the last enemy ship firing? Li Huxon immediately said, it's recorded. That's our chance. Tongmaya Okyu said in a deep voice, at such a short distance, its energy storage can't hide from us. Comparing the parameters, the moment its energy storage reaches its peak is the moment it fires. At that time we can avoid it when we are moving. No matter how fast it strikes, we will definitely let it go when we dodge it the moment it fires. And in the final analysis, it is a particle beam weapon, and it runs in a straight line, even if the diameter of the particle beam strike is very large, even if it is very powerful, Without gravity or enough deflection equipment, we can definitely make it past the second round of attack. Now send all the energy to the thrusters that can still be used, quick." Everyone in the fleet acted immediately. Koyama Hinata, who was asking himself in the corner that he must die, couldn't help but said, in Dongyin language, "This captain is too powerful." We survived Hoshino Junction, however, was still looking at the shattered ground under his feet, and suddenly asked, in Japanese language, if the mandala dodges the attack, where will the cannon land? These words made the three Dongyin people fall into silence because the answer is too simple and too cruel. The flying saucer shot obliquely at the mandala, which was approaching Kyushu Island, in the direction of the Pacific Ocean. If the mandala dodged, the blow would undoubtedly fall on Kyushu Island. At this moment, Hoshino Junction finally realized what a big mistake he had made. In other words, what a big mistake they made. Kanai-Iko's face turned pale. Koyama Hinata said, in Dongyin language, "No, we must not let this shut down on our own country. Almost all our compatriots are on Kyushu Island. My Takumi, Captain Hoshino, quickly think of a way, think of a way." Hoshino Junction looked at the Kyushu Island in the distance through the porthole, and her pupils throbbed when she heard the voice of the crew on the other side reporting the energy level transition of the enemy ship without any gaps. Tongmaya Okyu stood up excitedly. She is confident that she can live with her battleship and crew, and she can live up to the captain's uniform, let alone the trust of the entire ship, and even more so, Su-Ran's trust. But at this moment, she heard a plop behind her, and someone exclaimed. Tongmaya Okyu turned around in surprise. That was Junction Hoshino kneeling under her captain's seat. A flash of light from an explosion came in from outside the window and landed on Tongmaya Okyu's body, but the shadow it cast enveloped Hoshino Junction. On June 26, the insect swarm landed in Dongpu, killing them all the way. Dongpu is small. Facing the swarm, there is no way to fight, and there is no way to hide. So far, in 5 months, less than 5 of our 100 million people have survived. 100,000, of which 200,000 are on Kyushu Island. If this bomb hits Kyushu Island, these 200,000 people will be wiped out along with Kyushu Island. Captain Tong, I know I don't deserve to say such a thing, but I was born in Dongyin, that is my home country, and we are also human beings. I beg you here, save our people, I beg you, save us. After Hoshino Junction finished speaking, she kowtowed heavily. Boom, boom. She exerted so much force that her forehead rotted away after only 2 times, and the blood flowed down her pale cheeks, but she didn't seem to feel it at all. In the bridge of the mandala, there was silence. Tongmaya Okyu stood on the platform of the captain's seat and looked at Hoshino Junction. Seeing this smart and strong woman showing such a gesture in front of her, for some reason, her heart seemed to tremble. How can she help? There is only one way. Use the mandala to divert this bombardment. The life of a fleet is exchanged for the survival of 200,000 people on that land. All choices in this world are so simple and cruel. Tongmaya Okyu blinked, turned her head, and looked at the monitor in the battleship. Because of the severe electromagnetic interference, the reconnaissance drones that flew out had already stopped moving forward, but wandered in place, sending the images back to the mandala intermittently. In the intermittent scenes at that time, you can see the Japanese people on that land. Did they also notice any omen in the dark? The woman hiding in the corner came out with her infant child in her arms. Looking at the strange and grotesque sky today, she didn't know when she shed tears, but the child in her arms stretched out her hand blankly, as if wanting to grab the whole sky. Chapter 61. What is right and wrong? The same scene is happening in countless corners of this land. The fighters in the fight put down their weapons and looked up at the high sky. People hiding in the shadows and corners seem to have heard the bleak sound of the wind in the distance, and they have noticed some kind of surging destruction in the dark. The light of mandala's thrusters is flashing, preparing for the impending jump through the sky. Many people have already rushed to the thruster, engine control room and energy control room, and they are working hard for the survival of the entire ship. But inside the bridge, the sound seemed to be being snatched away by an invisible force. Deathly silence. Lee Hakusun raised his head and looked at Tongmaya Okyu, who was standing on a high place at this moment. It wasn't just him. Many people looked at the person standing at the top, the captain. How will she choose? Tongmaya Okyu felt as if her heart was beating half a beat slower. Take a step back and the whole ship will survive further. 200,000 people in Kyushu were born in a certain moment. Tongmaya Okyu had such a thought. The beginning of this battle stemmed from the ambitions of the Japanese people. Their demise was their own fault and they deserved it in this world. Shouldn't those who do wrong should pay for it? But she looked at the pictures that were sent back intermittently at that time, at the child with blank eyes and the hands stretched to the sky. She lowered her head, Her hands pressed against the trouser line unconsciously clenched into fists. There is no time for her to choose and hesitate. I'm sorry, everyone. When Tongmyaokyu raised his head again, the look in the eyes reflecting the light and shadow of the battlefield was replaced by pure firmness. At some point, let's move east. Now, behind her, Hoshino Junksha raised her head in surprise. She stumbled to her feet, bows to everyone in the bridge. The many crew members were only silent for about a second, and then began to act, obeying orders. The soldier who reported the enemy ship's energy storage in real time continued to report the situation loudly over and over again. Everyone found their position, and some people just cried like that. But the battleship began to move. The mandala began to move, and Tongmyaokyu, who stood at the top, did not sit down again. She passed the flash of the holographic projection and felt the shock generated by the movement of the battleship reach her body, and her heart trembled accordingly. They did not die generously. Everyone was afraid, but no one hesitated or refused. Tongmyaokyu held her head up. Her eyes seemed to see through the fighter planes and insects that filled the sky, saw the alien enemy ship that locked them down, and looked at their opponent in the sky. A flash of light began to brighten up. It's like a star rising in the sky. Tongmyaokyu closed her eyes. The mandala was dead silent far away. Qiao Xiangjun was entangled with the Skywatcher with his enlightener, and he knew that this attack was still locked on Tongmyaokyu's mandala. He slammed his fist heavily on his armrest. Fury and hatred surged in his heart. This kind of resentment made him want to rush out of the battleship and fight these damn bugs with primitive weapons to the death. Only blood can give purpose to this fury. But in the next moment, his eyes widened in shock, for there was a brilliant flash in the sky, but no blow fell. The mandala, still in the sky, was not destroyed because that flash of light did not come from the unknown flying saucer above the fleet at an altitude of 12,000 meters, but from the land of China at that moment, from Mount Lapa, the new capital of Huaxia in the west, to the sky above the sea outside Chengdu City, Kyushu Island, Dongying in the east. If someone stands on this line and looks up, he can clearly see that above the sky and clouds, there is a line that pierces the sky. The light of heaven and earth. It took a certain amount of time for the Yunchang to take off, and it took a certain amount of time to find and calibrate the position of the enemy ship, but the main guns were ready to fire from the moment it was lifted into the air. The alien flying saucer that hides its head and shows its tail is faster. The flying particle beam ray pierced every cloud layer along the way, and after experiencing rapid attenuation in the air medium, it accurately completed the hit, and it still had unparalleled power when it arrived. The hot and dazzling sun is the result of the blow. This is no less than the shocking blow of the previous flying saucer. The high-energy particle beam rays are like spears thrown from the sky by the gods, leaving a trace that cannot be erased for a long time in the pupils of everyone who observes the scene from different angles. Every destroyer, fighter jet, and apocalypse in the sky burst out with astonishing fighting spirit on a battlefield of this level. There is nothing more exciting than seeing one's own firepower that is not inferior to that of the opponent. The vast majority of people know that they have a top warship hidden behind them, but no one thought that that warship would have such a terrifying power. It arrived here in a few seconds from a single shot from the Xinjiang special zone. The war insects formed an effective strike. However, this blow actually failed to penetrate the flying saucer over the sea off Kyushu Island. The people on the mandala were the first to observe the result of the attack, and they were also the ones who observed the result of the attack most clearly. Tongmyaokyu failed to feel her arrival as expected, so she opened her eyes instantly because of being locked by the alien flying saucer. Over Tongmyaokyu's flight path, most of the combat insects have already started to retreat when the attack is about to take place, giving up a rare clear airspace here. Therefore, looking up from the mandala, looking through the figures of the migratory locusts that were still flying around in mid-air and not leaving, one could see that the blow had landed at the end of the sky. The high-energy, high-speed particle beam rays that pierced the skyline like the sword of Damocles failed to penetrate a destroyer like when the flying saucer fired before, but were blocked by the flying saucer and violently exploded. Wasted. A bright flame exploded in the sky. This terrifying blow didn't even directly destroy the flying saucer. Tongmyaokyu was surprised, but she understood that since the Yunchang and their fleet had already made their move, they didn't need to think about the flying saucer. Tongmyaokyu immediately turned around and gave orders one after another in a deep voice. Order the whole ship to continue to fight against the insect fire on the other side. Qiao Xiangjun's face sank like water, because at this moment, the lightning-shaped swarm warships came across directly, and the guns were everywhere. As if they were in a full-scale firing posture, behind Qiao Xiangjun, the sea was surging, and the huge sea monster that had been hiding for a long time broke out and rushed towards his battleship. Ask for the original. I am too difficult. Chapter 62. Xinjiang Special Zone. The first thing Su Ran received after completing the attack was Lin Yuandong's last report before entering the serious interference zone. Lin Yuandong said in a deep voice, "We have confirmed that at a position 400 nautical miles east of Chengdu City on Kyushu Island, there is a giant insect nest of unprecedented scale moving towards the battlefield, and its sailing speed has exceeded 200 knots per hour. Moreover, it fired violently while moving, showing unprecedented firepower and plasma cannons. By resetting its course, it can be confirmed that it is coming from the depths of the Pacific Ocean. It may be a key insect nest in a swarm. It will arrive at the battlefield in 7 minutes, and our ship will encounter it head-on in 3 minutes. At that time, our fleet will open fire and kill it 328 nautical miles away from the Chendichang battlefield. Now our ship is about to enter severe electromagnetic interference area. This is our ship's last detailed report, requesting the release of all combat authority. Fire freely, fight freely." Su Ran took a deep breath, glanced at the emergency battle report on another holographic screen, and said in a fast and deep voice, "Old Lin, I will leave the front to you. The moment you fire, the Pacific War situation will be completely divided, and the positions and combat intentions of all our warships will be completely exposed. I will wipe out the enemy army." Su Ran nodded. Lin Yuandong's communication was interrupted randomly. On the other hand, Su Ran directly stretched the images on several screens, and gave an order in a deep voice, "Our ship set sail. Recharge the main gun." The engines and thrusters of the Cloud City were roaring. Su Ran's eyes were on the picture in front of him. In that picture, it is the scene above the coastline of Chengdu City. The unknown flying saucer obviously didn't expect such an incredible blow from an oblique direction. Although it also made an emergency evasion, it was still hit just like the flying saucer attacking the fleet before it fired. Even Su Ran didn't notice its existence, and all kinds of instruments didn't detect it at all, and similarly, no one found it before Yunchang fired. Cloud City. This means that the technical status of the two sides, at least in terms of anti-stealth and stealth, is almost the same. As long as they don't fire, no one can find the other in the swarm. They may have shared Su Ran's situation with the civilization where the flying saucer was. However, the Yunchang under the 4th level has completely crushed the insect swarm that is more focused on biology in terms of stealth technology. Even if the Yunchang has been docked in the new capital for many days, the insect swarm can't predict it. Even if the Yunchang was exposed when it took off, but the swarms outside the Xinjiang Special Zone learned the news, and when the swarms outside the Xinjiang Special Zone quickly passed the information to the advanced swarm units, another high-level insect swarm unit was passed to the unknown flying saucer, and this time was enough for Su Ran to complete the sneak attack. However, under one blow, the flying saucer was not destroyed. The flying saucer was completely knocked out from its invisible state. Judging from the screen, the shape of that thing is really similar to that of a flying saucer. The diameter of the flying saucer is more than 2 kilometers, and the whole body is dark and cold. With blue fluorescent lights shining on the edge. In terms of scale, it is bigger than Su Ran's Yuncheng, but now half of it is shrouded in billowing thick smoke. Even if the picture sent back is very blurry, you can still see open flames and uninterrupted flashes of martyrdom amidst the billowing smoke. The flying saucer was slowly rising into the sky, flying rapidly and decisively into space without looking back. They are going to run. When I was attacked or disabled, I ran away immediately. Even Su Ran felt a little ashamed of himself with such determination from the heart. Judging from the information of the whole project, this flying saucer has been hiding under Kyushu Island for a very long time. I don't know how many years it took to repair the battleship. It is very likely that the repair was completed a few years ago. For some reason, it has been staying under Kyushu Island and has not moved for a long time. Now, it and the swarm teamed up to attack Su Ran's warship, and as a result, it was disabled by Su Ran on the spot. Su Ran is not the one to let the tiger go back to the mountain no matter what this flying saucer is, and it doesn't matter whether I want to hit you first or you hit me first. Now that the beam is tied, it's not so easy to go. Therefore, after finishing the call with Lin Yuandong, Su Ran immediately issued a series of orders, and the Yunchang directly rose from the ground, accelerated in the air, set off a few seconds slower than the flying saucer, and flew like a flying saucer into space, chasing the fugitive flying saucer, chasing and fighting. So far, the battlefield has been completely divided into 3. At the same time, in the Xinjiang Special Zone, battle reports like raindrops were flying into the headquarters just as the fleet, swarms, and unknown flying saucers were exchanging fire over the Pacific Ocean and even in the universe. A large number of war insects located on the border of the Xinjiang Special Zone also began to invade. The map shows that the surrounding lines of the Xinjiang Special Zone have been bombarded for thousands of miles. Swarms are crossing the border in massive numbers. Off the coast of Chengdu City, Kyushu Island, angry waves surge. Since ancient times, the unique ocean environment has always been the cradle of huge creatures on the earth, especially for the swarm. That huge dragon-like sea monster has been hiding in the sea for a long time. Its huge body undulates between the deep sea and the shallow sea. In the scorching battlefield, few people will pay attention to it, let alone figure it out true body shape. Until this moment it broke out. Only then did Qiao Xiangjin realize that it was even bigger than he expected. Its total length is more than 2 kilometers, and its width is almost comparable to that of the Awakener. It leaps out of the ocean, like a fish jumping over a dragon's gate, like a snake transforming into a dragon. No bite, even with a shield. If he was bitten by this thing, he might be dragged into a tug of war, not to mention a few gallows ahead. Qiao Xiangjin urgently raised the height of his enlightenment, trying to avoid it, but at this moment, he saw the dense forest of naval guns on few gallows bursting into flames, and the dazzling plasma shells shuttered the whole line. However, the landing point of these terrifying plasma cannons was not his Awakener, but the huge sea monster war worm behind it. The snake-shaped battle worm and the online worm swarm node controlling it did not expect few gallows to strike at all. The huge body of the monster leaping in mid-air became a living target at this moment. Few gallows attack with a full hit. The giant monster's body was directly blown to pieces, and the plasma fell heavily to the sea surface along with the body parts. And few gallows immediately turned the muzzle of the gun, fired 100 guns, and jumped into the battlefield, without hesitation, massacred the battle clusters composed of sky patrollers, migratory locusts and even haulers. Chapter 63. In space, a scene of quick pursuit is being staged. The flying saucer was severely damaged, but it still showed an astonishing flying speed. It flew out of the atmosphere and accelerated all the way with the help of the Earth's gravity. The speed per hour was actually comparable to Su Ran's Yunchang. However, Su Ran's Yunchang accelerated into space half a step later, and the two flew past the angle between the moon and the Earth, one after the other, and fired at each other with energy weapons in space. The flashes flew around. The Yunchang was in the best condition, the shield was running at full power, and the opponent's rapid-fire directed energy weapon was not powerful enough to penetrate the shield of the Yunchang at all. But the flying saucer was gradually riddled with holes, and the speed was getting faster and faster, as if I had already ignored it in order to escape. However, despite this, everyone on the Yunchang still did not intend to underestimate the enemy. Everyone inside the entire battleship maintained an absolute mental tension. Even Su Ran didn't take it lightly because of the unbearable performance of this flying saucer. The previous bombardment that penetrated the skies over Kyushu Island is still vivid, and the technical level of this flying saucer is by no means inferior to that of the Yunchang. The two competed with each other for more than a minute, but the distance was getting closer and closer as time went by. Even if the flying saucer was able to run again, it was still seriously damaged. At first, it couldn't run away in one breath and was bitten by Su Ran's Yunchang. Unless it could destroy the Yunchang in turn, it would be impossible to escape from the cloud. The pursuit of the city number 7,000 kilometers, 6,000 kilometers, 4,000 kilometers, the distance is getting closer and closer, and the main gun of the Yunchang has been fully charged, but Su Ran has not fired. In the space environment, although the attenuation of the particle beam weapon is not large, but in this high-speed pursuit environment, it is still not the time for the main gun to play a role. Therefore, even at a distance of about 4,000 kilometers, the two are still bombarding each other with laser weapons, particle beam rapid-fire guns, and electromagnetic guns. All kinds of flashes of light fly around in space, like a silent pantomime of light and shadow, but the speeds of both are quite fast. In just such a moment, the Earth has already been left tens of thousands of kilometers behind. However, due to the size, the Earth is still very large when viewed from this angle. Although the influence of gravity gradually weakens with a superposition of distance, it still exists, but the moon in reverse position is almost left behind. 3,000 kilometers, 2,000 kilometers, getting closer. The condition of the flying saucer was also getting worse. Su Ran said in a deep voice, "Shoot at our nuclear torpedo." The two torpedo launchers located below the Yunchang immediately protruded their ferocious fangs. After being accelerated by the electromagnetic orbit, The two nuclear torpedoes flew out quickly and flew towards the far end of space, and at this moment, an alarm appeared on the radar. Instantly the flying saucer dropped a torpedo and a space mine one step ahead of Suran. 15 strange-shaped alien torpedoes are flying towards the Yuncheng under the cover of directed energy weapons that suddenly merge and shoot in directions. And in the radar display, there are at least 1,000 space mines in front of them slowly drifting away. Come on, relying on the initial inertia, the gravity of the Earth and the gravity of the Moon. A minefield is being pulled up right in front of the Yuncheng. The purpose of the enemy ships is not to attack, but to force us to avoid their attacks. In this way, our speed will be slowed down, the pursuit distance will be longer, and they will have an excellent opportunity to escape. Li Yilin instantly analyzed and judged the purpose of the enemy ship. We must not let that flying saucer escape. This was Suran's only thought, and it was also the reason why he gave up the once-in-a-lifetime fighter plane on the Earth battlefield to chase out of the Earth and chase into space. Suran said directly, "Speed up, hit them directly, never let them go." The propeller of the Yuncheng accelerated again, and a large number of short-range missiles flew out, sweeping away the space mines in the air, ensuring that the warship advanced at a high speed. There are so many mines and torpedoes thrown by the flying saucer, there must be certainty that they will definitely turn the Yuncheng, but Suran does not accept this. "Even if you can blow a hole in my battleship, I will keep you forever in space." Same moment Earth, off the coast of Chengdu City, Kyushu Island. The situation is changing drastically at this moment. The battleship of the swarm, the Fugalo, got cold feet. Fugalo, who had been floating 2,000 meters above the Pacific Ocean, opened fire at this moment, but the target was not the human battleship Awakener, but the Skywatcher battle group that originally existed to defend it. This directly caught the swarm by surprise. With 100 guns firing, the Sky Patrollers suffered heavy losses. The high-speed response system of the swarm became a hindrance at this moment. Zanchong and Command Zanzong sent a confirmation message, but nothing came to light, and Fugalo's rank in the insect swarm network is far higher than that of the nearest sea insect nest. Fugalo refused to respond, and the insect nest could only urgently confirm with a higher-level insect nest after coming and going, when it really realized that the interstellar warship Fugalo, which the swarms were proud of, had really turned their backs. Nearly a minute had passed. During this minute, the sky surveyors in the sky did not attack Fugalo because the nearby insect nests failed to obtain accurate orders. Instead, they panicked in the sky like forest birds expelled by hunters. Flying around, can only dodge and under Fugalo's intensive firepower system. In this minute, the Skywatcher battle group has lost more than half, and it can hardly form any combat effectiveness. But Fugalo is still on the rise, and is entering the battlefield with a strong attitude at this moment. Not only the swarm was stunned, but even the fleet headed by Qiao Xiangjun was stunned. They didn't know why the swarm warship suddenly turned against them at this moment. Instead of attacking them, it began to rush into the swarm formation. But Qiao Xiangjun had a faint understanding, because from the very beginning, he felt that Fugalo gave people the feeling that he was releasing water first. It was very late to start doing it. The flying saucer at an altitude of 10,000 meters fired, and the Skywatcher fired. As the main combat force of the swarm, it did not move for a long time. This is not a movie. And the power of the finale is always the last to go. As an obvious existence, Fugalo should have fired at the first time to reduce the loss of the swarm, and later, Fugalo opened fire and bit himself, but Qiao Xiangjun recalled now that Fugalo didn't use all his strength at that time. If it had used the battle to slaughter the Sky Patrollers now, he would have been destroyed long ago. After stopping for so long, the spore life is actually hiding in the dark. Chapter 64 Stupid Bugs and Humans. As an interstellar-class battleship in the swarm, although due to technological shortcomings, Fugalo does not have energy guns of the same level as the Cloud City or the Flying Saucer, its firepower should not be underestimated. Especially at such a close range, the various weapons it carries that are only effective against living creatures can come in handy. Therefore, at this moment, the situation is overwhelmingly in favor of the fleet. Just now, the fleet was still surrounded by overwhelming siege, with terrifying alien flying saucers on it, and swarms of insects staring at the sky beside it. The entire fleet seemed to be on the line of life and death, and would perish at any moment. But how long has it been? In less than 5 minutes, the situation reversed. The unknown alien flying saucer was defeated by the Yuncheng. Fugalo turned his back, and half of the Sky Patrollers were killed or injured in an instant. Under Qiao Xiangjun's command, the fleet reunited. In fact, they also suffered heavy losses. The power system of the mandala was damaged, fuel leaked, energy was insufficient, and the shields were completely wiped out. There were only 7 destroyers left, and the other drones and fighter jets were completely wiped out, but they have passed the most tragic moment of bloody battle, and now is the time to fight back. The mandala was severely damaged, and Tuamaya Okyu took the initiative to withdraw from the forward firefighting zone, and cancelled the dual commander battlefield command mode, and handed it over to Qiao Xiangjin to command the entire army. Qiao Xiangjin quickly reorganized the fleet under the cover of Fujialuo, pulled away in the air, and followed Fujialuo to open fire. All of a sudden, on this battlefield, the swarm air battle group composed of locusts, howlers, and sky watchers became the weaker side. The formation of the beacon was chaotic, retreating steadily, and even defeated. After several setbacks and a lot of delay, Qiao Xiangjin finally got in touch with a few Gallo. There is no picture, only sound. Over there is a human language with a very strange pronunciation, which seems to be spoken from the mouth of a bug, which is extremely awkward. Fujialuo, we have already controlled it. Stupid human beings, enjoy the life and blessings we bestow on you. Just from this tone and tone, anyone can tell that this is the spore life. Of course, at the moment of Fujialuo's defection, anyone with some brains would have already guessed it. Qiao Xiangjin snorted coldly, said, although Su Ran didn't inform us in advance, but if it's not what I expected, you have reached an agreement with Su Ran early in helping us, right? It's just that you chose the most appropriate time to act. The implication of Qiao Xiangjin's words is, since everything is planned, why are you spore beings pretending to be big-tailed wolves? We bet on Su Ran. It's not you. These stupid bugs, think that their system can cut off our invasion? Since the last contact with the Great War, we have already begun to invade its Fujialuo. We have worked hard, step by step, and finally took down this battleship with a unique position in the swarm. Spore life is still the same as before, boasting in 3 sentences, but Qiao Xiangjin knew it in his heart. It turned out that since the Sky Brood War, the spore life has been very honest. It's not that they really learned to be good people, but that they are quietly attacking the swarm. There must be more unknown details in this, but Qiao Xiangjin stopped asking any more at this time, but immediately said, order the entire fleet to fire. The flames of war have not been extinguished now that the victory in Chengdechang's outer sea has been decided. Qiao Xiangjin doesn't want to waste any time, let alone give the swarm any chance, so he wants to settle the battle here quickly. At the same moment, the new capital city and Old Man came to the command center of the military region at this moment, in order to deal with the insect swarms that invaded from all over the Xinjiang province area. The place is already busy, and there are people running back and forth in a hurry. A series of orders flew from here to various important positions, organizing a series of defense lines. The new capital city is powerful because of the fleet. In fact, its own military force has not increased much. Facing the surging swarm of insects and the absence of the fleet, it can be said that now is a critical moment. The new capital city cannot resist the impact of the insect swarm. Although the old man who arrived suddenly was in good spirits, he was dressed in ordinary clothes, and he hardly attracted anyone's attention at first. A soldier even stepped forward, half chasing. How did you get in? Can anyone get in here? Quick, don't stay here, go hide in the air raid shelter. The old man smiled slightly, and he said, I don't want to hide. I can come in because I am Zhang Jianguo, director of the logistics department of the Xinjiang fleet. This series of names surprised the soldier. His first reaction was disbelief, but he suddenly came to his senses. If not for this identity, how could this mere old man enter here, or even go outside the headquarters? The soldier immediately changed his respectful expression. Why are you here alone? You come in first, and I will find Major General Li for you because my people are moving things. Zhang Jianguo said something that made the soldier confused, then smiled and said, I won't go in, and I don't need to see Major General Li. You just need to go and tell him, ask him to open the gate of the military region, and let our people transport the 10 turbo laser cannons and 15 directed energy rapid fire cannons that the commander donated to the new capital to the battlefield. What? The soldier was taken aback and couldn't believe his ears. Although he was just an ordinary soldier of the military guard company, he was also a regular soldier, and he had lived next to the fleet for several months. Of course, he knew what Zhang Jianguo meant by these weapons. Needless to say, the turbo laser cannon, although the power of the directed energy rapid fire cannon will attenuate in the atmospheric environment, it is a terrifying weapon that can fire 2,000 beams a minute. Meat machine, die as many as you come. The arrival of these weapons, it can be said, can change the situation of the entire new capital. But Zhang Jianguo had finished what he wanted to say and completed his task, so he smiled lightly, patted the soldier on the shoulder, and walked back. He is getting old, Since he has completed the task assigned to him by Suran, there is no need to stay here anymore. He wants to go back to his fleet and look at those two little guys, Li Wenyu and Xin Yu. The swarm is approaching. But they can't be allowed to have trouble. Those two little guys are very ghostly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.